Chapter 601. Baby, someone wants to bathe at my place. Do you think it's okay? Instantly. Bei Yunj looked up at the report she was writing. She did not know when, but half of the report was written with Hua Shidu. Had she been bewitched by that D***M man? Bei Yunj immediately deleted most of the Hua Shidu and continued writing the report at hand. The next day, Bei Yunj received a call. Old Master was suddenly unwell and asked her to watch the music concert with Xiang Yan. Old Master Qin was worried about Xiang Yan going alone. All right, Old Master. Bei Yunj slowly walked downstairs and said leisurely, "You're so good to him. I almost suspected that he was your biological grandson." What nonsense are you talking about again? Old Master Qin scolded jokingly, but it was not difficult to hear his indulgence towards the younger generation. All right, let's not talk about it anymore. I'll go pick him up now. Bei Yunj looked at her watch, hung up the phone, and got into the car to go to the hospital. She realized that Xiang Yan had already changed his clothes. He was wearing a simple navy blue t-shirt and trousers, making him look even more gentle and elegant. If this person could stand up, he would probably be the most popular person in the world. The nurse came to help me change just now, Xiang Yan explained. Bei Yunj nodded and pushed Xiang Yan out of the hospital. Along the way, Xiang Yan smiled gently. Did Old Master ask you to accompany me? Yes, he's worried about you, Bei Yunj said casually. She did not feel unhappy that she had been sent on a mission. Did I delay you? Old Master's matters are the most important. Hearing Bei Yunj's words, Xiang Yan could not help but smile. Indeed. Although this girl did not look easy to get along with, she was a filial girl. Cool record literature along the way. Xiang Yan told Bei Yunj a lot about the current music trends. He did not care if Bei Yunj was listening. Until they arrived at the concert venue. Xiang Yan took out 2 tickets and was invited in. The tickets this time don't seem to be very good. Xiang Yan handed one to Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj took a look and saw that it was a VIP seat. However, for this concert, there were other classes of seats above the ordinary VIP. Do you want another seat? Bei Yunj remembered that Du Xiao had said that 90% of large-scale concerts were attended by the International Musicians Association. It was not difficult to get a ticket internally. Forget it. This is not bad either. Xiang Yan did not plan on telling Bei Yunj that it was very difficult to get the tickets this time. The price outside had already risen to more than 100,000 yuan for an ordinary ticket. Bei Yunj nodded and didn't say anything else. There's still half an hour before the concert. Let's go eat something first, Xiang Yan said. There was a self-service R-style afternoon tea outside, and the desserts were exquisite and beautiful. Subsequently, it was only when Bei Yunj was picking out snacks by the side that Xiang Yan saw Nancy's message. Xiang Yan, I'm not only doing this for my successor, but also for you. Back then, you were also a prodigy in everyone's eyes. Are you going to give up on yourself just like that? Xiang Yan did not reply and only looked at the ticket in his hand. His lips curled into a faint self-deprecating smile. What was there to be proud of about a prodigy who had fallen into a quagmire? In the past, he would receive tickets to this concert every year, but they were always platinum seats. This year, for some reason, it had become an ordinary VIP ticket. The Xiang Yan of the past no longer exists. Xiang Yan lowered his eyes and muttered to himself in a hoarse voice. His gentle eyes were filled with suppressed restlessness and decadence. P.S. It's coming. Be good and stay in the top 15 monthly votes. Don't let old Su drop out halfway through his update. Chapter 602. All of a sudden, a clear voice sounded. The current Xiang Yan is still Xiang Yan. Xiang Yan looked up and saw Bei Yunj, who was biting the cake fork, looking at him. She took the fork down and fiddled with the cake in her hand. Xiang Yan. It's hard, but get through it. Hearing this, Xiang Yan looked at Bei Yunj in front of him. His hand holding the phone inexplicably heated up. Not long after, Bei Yunj and Xiang Yan were about to return to the concert. They were almost bumped into by someone who suddenly ran over. Bei Yunj frowned unconsciously. There was a faint coldness in her eyes. Before she looked up, she saw the gorgeously dressed woman in front of her turn her head and sneer at the foreign man who was rushing over. Am I causing trouble for you? The woman pointed at Bei Yunj and questioned the man. This sister should be your type, right? You are rich and powerful. Others may be willing to follow you, but I will never. Her tone was filled with loftiness and arrogance. This scene of expressing her arrogance as if there was no one else around made Xiang Yan and Bei Yunj's eyes cold. Bei Yunj savored the woman's words and licked her red lips. She smiled carelessly and said, "Why do I feel unhappy when I hear this?" With that said, the arrogant woman froze for a moment. It was probably the first time she had met someone who said that. She turned her head and saw Bei Yunj's face clearly. Her expression changed immediately. You. She had always been proud of her looks. Back then, many socialites in Yuncheng had lost to her face. Even the eldest daughter of the Song family, who had been praised by everyone, was at most on par with her. But the girl in front of her was the same as her. They were both gorgeous. But compared to this girl, she, who used to brag about her charm, was inexplicably tacky. Even if this girl didn't speak, she had an innate elegance and self-restraint. Ling, the foreign man, immediately stepped forward, grabbed the woman's hand and apologized to Bei Yunj. "I'm very sorry. My friend was reckless and made a fool of himself." The foreign man spoke the language of country A. It seemed that the woman beside him did not understand the language of country R. "Tell your friend to be more sensible." Bei Yunj glanced at the woman slowly. The corners of her lips curled up as she said with a lazy smile, "If you really have such a backbone, you should take off the string of jewelry around your neck, throw it to the ground and leave immediately." As soon as he finished speaking, the woman's body froze. She felt a burning pain on her face, and anger rose in her chest. This was the first time she had been humiliated in public. At this thought, she bit her lip and her gaze finally landed on Xiang Yan. This man. He was even better looking than Fu Yanbai, but it was a pity that he was a lame man. The regret in the woman's eyes dissipated, and then a great sense of satisfaction rose. She looked at Bei Yunj and smiled. "I'm sorry. My friend and I were just throwing a tantrum. I wonder who this is. Mrs. Boyfriend? What a pity. I think this gentleman must have been a proud son of heaven in the past." Hearing this, Xiang Yan's eyes did not waver because he had heard such words many times. But then, just as Xiang Yan was about to explain for Bei Yunj, suddenly, she chuckled. She said leisurely, "Why should a proud son of heaven be afraid of being at the end of the road?" In an instant, Xiang Yan's long eyelashes fluttered violently as he subconsciously looked up at the girl in front of him. Chapter 603. Bei Yunj smirked and patted the hem of her skirt lazily. "Also, this is my friend." With that said, Bei Yunj left with Xiang Yan, leaving the young woman standing there with an ugly expression. This girl had a natural aura that she couldn't imitate no matter how hard she tried. The woman bit her lip and turned to look at the foreign man. Seeing that he was also looking at Bei Yunj's back in amazement, a flame of jealousy rose in her heart. "That person, do you like her?" Yu Ling could not help but ask. Hearing this, the man wanted to nod, but in the end, he could only shake his head. Seeing this, Yu Ling finally felt better in her heart. The man's gaze was still fixed on the place where Bei Yunj had just left. That girl was not someone he could covet at first glance. As Yu Ling walked on the road with this foreign man, she still felt annoyed for no reason. It had to be said that compared to this foreign man, Fu Yanbai was more popular with her. Thinking of this, Yu Ling's desire to return to Yun City grew even stronger. Especially after being stimulated by the strange girl just now, she wanted to return to Yun City and let that girl know what kind of existence she was in Yun City back then. Yu Ling's eyes darkened and she found her seat according to the admission ticket. But what she did not expect was, looking back, she found that Bei Yunj and that man were only in the ordinary VIP seats. She was a little surprised and felt a sense of superiority in her heart. At first, she thought that the two of them would be in the first 10 rows no matter what. She did not expect them to be sitting in the 15th row. At the end of the VIP seats, Yu Ling retracted her gaze and sat back in her seat with a smile on her face as she watched the grand music concert. Every day, when they came out, Yu Ling held the foreign man's hand and smiled. Today's concert was really good. Every year, our nation has an International Musicians Association concert, and the last ones are all members of the International Musicians Association. Only the top upper class of each country can participate in that concert. Hearing the foreign man say this, Yu Ling's eyes were filled with yearning. She unconsciously pinched the man's sleeve. "Then can you participate?" Yu Ling could not help but ask. The foreign man shook his head. I'm not qualified yet. But the person in charge of my group participated last year. Hearing this, Yu Ling was even more disappointed. If it were Fu Yanbai, he would definitely take her to see it, right? Seeing that Yu Ling was unhappy, the foreign man comforted her. However, my boss will be staying in Yun City for a long time this year. Maybe I can ask him for one. After all, he had been with his boss for so many years. He still had a chance to get a concert ticket. However, Yu Ling just smiled and said, Forget it, I'm just very interested in music. I don't want you to do something difficult for me. After saying that, Yu Ling hid the indignation in her eyes. If it was Fu Yanbai, with his status as the young master of the Fu family, why would he need to grovel and beg others for votes? Thinking of this, Yu Ling took a deep breath. She looked up and happened to see Bei Yunj and Shang Yan. Miss! Yu Ling shouted and quickly walked in front of Bei Yunj. What's the matter? Bei Yunj glanced at this woman. Her impatience was clearly displayed on her face. The foreign man tugged on Yu Ling's sleeve when he saw her half-smiling expression. It was obvious that this young lady did not like them. However, Yu Ling smiled and said, We've met so many times. Don't you think it's fate? Chapter 604. Hearing this, Bei Yunj's eyebrows twitched. She looked at Yu Ling for a while. This is the first time I've met someone who doesn't know how to appreciate favors like you. Instantly, the atmosphere was silent and awkward. Yu Ling was speechless. The foreign man was speechless. Shang Yan suppressed his laughter, his gentle eyes especially making people unable to look away. He could tell that Bei Yunj was not mocking Yu Ling on purpose. She really felt that way. This made Yu Ling not know how to reply for a moment. Miss, are you very prejudiced against me? Yu Ling forced out a smile. Not really. I don't like others to be an eyesore in front of me. Bei Yunj glanced at her and asked Shang Yan, Are you leaving? Seeing this, Yu Ling was still blocking Bei Yunj, not wanting her to leave with a smile on her face. Miss, actually, I want to be friends with you. Bei Yunj licked the corners of her lips and laughed, her gaze turning cold. Miss, do you lack friends so much? Seeing that Bei Yunj could barely suppress her coldness, Yu Ling's suitor hurried forward and said, Miss, don't be angry. I think Yu Ling might just want to treat you to a meal. With that said, that suitor even turned around and begged Shang Yan for help with his eyes. Hearing this, Yu Ling seemed to have thought of something as a dark look flashed past her eyes. She started to show weakness. Yes, miss, I don't have any ill intentions. With that said, Yu Ling bit her lip and looked at Shang Yan. Bei Yunj raised an eyebrow. Shang Yan, we. Then before Bei Yunj could say anything, Shang Yan said, Yunj, do you have time? If you do, we can go for a meal together. Bei Yunj glanced at Shang Yan. She was not interested in such activities. Besides, she remembered that the old master said that this person did not like places for gatherings. Are you sure? Let's go. I'm hungry too. Shang Yan's eyes were like stars as his thin red lips curled up slightly. She had a gentle temperament, but it always made people feel shocked. Yu Ling and the others were preparing to attend a party nearby, which wasn't too far away. On the road, Shang Yan unlocked his phone and saw countless messages from Nancy. He didn't scroll up, but he roughly saw a few lines of content. You went to the concert on Shimei Road? My heir seems to have gone too. She didn't come to the computing institute today. I'm so lonely. Speaking of which, she doesn't talk to me when she's around. Although our Guer is only a high school student, she's really quite pretty. I guarantee that she'll be the prettiest one at the concert. Guer? Shang Yan's brows twitched as he looked at Bei Yunj. Did you just call me? Bei Yunj turned around and asked. Shang Yan looked at her without saying anything. Bei Yunj thought that she had heard it wrong, so she didn't pay much attention to it. At this moment, Shang Yan was silent for a moment before sending Nancy a message. S.Y. Bei Yunj. A few seconds later. Nancy. Nancy. How do you know Guer's full name? Seeing this message, Shang Yan's heart skipped a beat as his eyes darkened. How could the air that Nancy had her eyes on be Bei Yunj? At this thought, Shang Yan suddenly thought of what old Master Qin had said to himself in the hospital. My Guer doesn't know anything. She's only good-looking and easily provokes bad guys. What will happen if I pass away? Xiang Yan was speechless. So, his granddaughter who didn't know anything was? P.S. Pfft, I can't tell your capabilities usually. So many people are watching the update. Old Sue, go prepare to update. There are still 6 updates left. I'll leave the monthly votes ranking to you guys. If you don't fall off the rankings, keep updating. Chapter 605. It took Xiang Yan a long time to mentally prepare himself. Previously, he was already surprised enough when he heard Nance say that the high school student he had his eyes on was. Even though he had graduated from Neely University and had seen countless geniuses, her talent was the most unimaginable to him. What shocked him even more was that it was actually Bei Yunj, an elder young miss who looked like she had a bad temper. Even her grandfather had always thought that his granddaughter didn't know anything. Xiang Yan looked at the figure in front of him. Before long, he replied to Nance. "S.Y. I agree to the matter you asked me to consider. S.Y. I'll return to our nation after some time." At this moment, Nance, who was at the computing institute, suddenly saw Xiang Yan's message and was jolted awake. What was going on? Why did such a difficult person like Xiang Yan suddenly agree? Just as Nance was feeling confused, Bei Yunj had already entered the banquet venue. She realized it later. Bei Yunj also sensed that something was wrong. She felt that the name Yu Ling sounded a little familiar. Soon, Bei Yunj suddenly remembered. Yu Ling, Fu Yanbai's sweetheart? Was she not dead? Or did she recognize the wrong person? Yunj, what are you thinking about? Xiang Yan had arrived beside her at some point in time. Nothing. I just think that woman's name sounds a little familiar. Bei Yunj said slowly. Hearing this, Xiang Yan smirked. Maybe they really know each other. I heard from George that Miss Yu used to be from Yuncheng. 2 to 3 years ago, he saved her from the shore. Hearing Xiang Yan say this, Bei Yunj was almost certain that this Yu Ling was the Yu Ling she knew. Looking at Bei Yunj's expression, Xiang Yan roughly knew that Bei Yunj was really related to this Yu Ling. Did she have any unhappiness with you? Xiang Yan asked. No. Bei Yunj's lips curled up. She did have some unhappiness with my Tian Tian. The banquet was held by the riverbank, which was paved with solid wood. The lights and moonlight reflected on the sparkling ripples. Behind the green trees were white villas. Wherever his gaze landed, it was like a painting. You are Mr. Ji, aren't you? Yu Ling's voice sounded. At this moment, Ji Yiqing turned around and saw a woman in a wine-red dress with scales and spaghetti straps. She was extremely charming. If it was in the past, Ji Yiqing might have been attracted as well. Unfortunately, he happened to see Pei Yunj in a gown at Yutha residence that time. The girl had black hair and snow-white skin. Her excessively beautiful eyes carried a faint smile without any warmth. That was the first time Ji Yiqing had a strong sense of why the demon concubine could turn all living beings upside down. Miss Yu, you've come. Ji Yiqing nodded and said with a smile, Last month, I was very grateful that Miss Yu was willing to accept the temporary blood donation. Otherwise, my sister might not have been able to keep her life. Yu Ling suppressed the surprise in her eyes. She didn't expect the younger brother of the noble lady she saved to be so decent. Then she smiled and said, It's just a blood donation. After all, it's 2 lives. I heard that Miss Yu also faints at blood. You're really kind. Ji Yiqing curled his lips and said, By the way, is that gentleman Miss Yu's boyfriend? No. Yu Ling immediately denied it. Seeing Ji Yiqing's stunned expression, Yu Ling hurriedly lowered her head and gently tucked her long hair behind her ear. I don't have a boyfriend. Chapter 606. Ji Yiqing looked at Yu Ling in front of him and felt that it was a little strange, but he did not know what was strange. He could only nod. Then, he remembered his sister's intentions and handed a gift box to Yu Ling. Yu Ling was flattered. Mr. Ji, what are you doing? My sister asked me to give this to you. She's in confinement now and can't express her gratitude to you in person. So she asked me to bring it to you. Who knew? Hearing this, Yu Ling's expression suddenly did not look too good. Mr. Ji, with your sister's situation, if it was someone else, I would have helped them too. I really don't need your thank you gift. Ji Yiqing raised his eyebrows and laughed carelessly. Miss Yu, did you misunderstand something? I appreciate Miss G's kindness. Mr. G inviting me to the banquet today is already considered a thank you gift for me. Yu Ling insisted. Hearing this, it was Ji Yiqing's first time encountering such a situation. If Miss G really wants to express her gratitude, why don't you treat me to a meal when she's free? Yu Ling said with a smile, a dark look flashing past her eyes. Back then, she wanted to see the people of the high society through Song Yao. Unfortunately, Song Yao had never been friendly to her. All right, then I'll deal with this thank you gift separately. Ji Yiqing nodded and did not forget to say with a smile, if Miss Yu needs any help in the future, you can look for me too. Hearing this, Yu Ling's heart beat faster and her cheeks flushed slightly. What's Mr. G's occupation? Don't misunderstand, I just feel that Mr. G's aura is very different. Ji Yiqing said, soldiers. My family has been in the army for generations, but because my mother's family is in business and she's the only daughter, she also has a business. That's very impressive. Yu Ling could not help praising. I'm very envious of Mr. G for having such a good living environment. As for me, I don't even know what to do if I want to return to Yuncheng. You want to return to Yuncheng? Ji Yiqing looked at her. Bean Bookstore. Yu Ling bit her lip, as if she found it difficult to say what she was going to say next. I used to have a very crazy boyfriend. I'm afraid that he'll find me. How about this? If Miss Yu really wants to go back, I can help you. Just as Ji Yiqing was halfway through speaking, he glanced around from the corner of his eye and happened to see a familiar person. When Yu Ling saw that Ji Yiqing had suddenly stopped speaking halfway, she subconsciously looked back. But to her surprise, the man was looking at Bei Yunj in the middle of their conversation. Yu Ling's expression changed. She forced a smile and deliberately asked, does Mr. G know that young lady? I met that lady on the road today. The man in the wheelchair next to her might be her boyfriend? He's not. After Ji Yiqing finished speaking, he walked towards Bei Yunj without waiting for Yu Ling to continue speaking. This almost caused Yu Ling's face to darken. Ling, does Mr. G know that young lady? I don't know. Yu Ling's face was cold as she followed him and ignored George. At this time, Bei Yunj heard a familiar voice. Why is Miss Pei here? Bei Yunj turned around and saw Ji Yiqing. Let's eat, she said. Ji Yiqing. This person didn't seem to know that this was a banquet hosted by the Ji family. What was wrong with Master Du? He didn't even give the young lady food? Does your brother know that you're eating at my house? Ji Yiqing asked with a smile. Chapter 607. Bei Yunj paused. Your house. Ji Yiqing nodded, then looked down at the gift box and casually stuffed it to Bei Yunj. Take it. Bei Yunj frowned unconsciously. What is it? It should be jewelry. I don't need it either. Ji Yiqing had never asked his sister, but according to his sister's generosity, it was undoubtedly a gem. Bei Yunj placed the gift box on the table. I don't need it either. She found it troublesome to keep the 3 safes that Qin Luyan and the other 2 had sent her last time. Miss Pei is too disrespectful. Ji Yiqing chuckled unconsciously. It's just a small thing. Take it as a thank you for helping to contact them. Or, can you bring it to her? Bei Yunj turned around. She's not interested either. Just nice. When Xiang Yan, who was beside them, heard this, his lips curved unconsciously as he looked at Bei Yunj with interest. Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched. Up to you. She would get Hua Shidu to send this back later. Are you? You know without asking? With that said, Ji Yiqing stuffed the gift box back to Bei Yunj confidently. Yu Ling said with a smile. Especially when she saw the gift box in Bei Yunj's hand, her face almost distorted. Bei Yunj did not reply and only ate some food. Suddenly. Miss, so you know Mr. G? She never thought that Ji Yiqing would turn around and give Bei Yunj the thank you gift that she had decisively rejected. However, Bei Yunj was not embarrassed at all. I know her, Ji Yiqing answered casually. However, Yu Ling could not help but glance at Bei Yunj, her tone inexplicably strange. Miss Pei is really popular. I'm afraid people give you gifts everywhere you go, right? Xiang Yan said, I heard that your brothers gave you a safe of jewelry each. Is that true? I think so. One of them is filled with antiques. Instead, she placed the gift box on the table and ate her snacks. All of a sudden. Qin Luyan and the rest? I heard that the Qin family has been in the limelight recently. I don't know why, but EG Corporation is in a hurry to cooperate. The Qin family also has a very mysterious and powerful hacker. Ji Yiqing said with a smile. Miss Pei's 3 brothers are all amazing. Pei Yunji's casual words made Yu Ling's expression freeze. Did this girl's brother give her an entire safe when he bought jewelry? The Qin Corporation that cooperated with EG? Previously, she had heard George mention that this was a new force that was at the peak of its power. At this moment, Yu Ling, who was by the side, practically froze all over. Qin Lang? Yu Ling asked with a stiff voice. How could he be this girl's brother? I know that it's unlikely for your brother to have a girlfriend. What about Qin Yu and Qin? And Bei is Kate. Ji Yiqing was still excited when he talked about Pei Yunji's family. Were these 2 people the ones she knew? Miss Yu should have left country A for some time. On the other hand, Yu Ling's mentality almost twisted as an indescribable jealousy spread. Back then, she thought that Song Yao was already a rich young lady that everyone envied. If she could win against Song Yao, she already had the ability to make people envious. But what was wrong with this girl? P.S. There are still 3 chapters left. Be obedient and remember to vote. Chapter 608. Why did someone have everything the moment they were born? This feeling of indignation was even more indignant than when she found out that Song Yao was the eldest young miss of the Song Corporation. Bei Yunj was not interested in the conversation around her. She turned around. When are you going back? I'll send you back first. Shang Yan shook his head and smiled. I've already called someone to pick me up. Hearing this, Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows. She had always thought that Shang Yan did not have any acquaintances in Yuncheng. Okay. Bei Yunj nodded. The few of them stood together. Even though they did not talk much, in Yu Ling's eyes, they were all from the same world. Only she came from a humble background. Yu Ling endured the distortion on her face, but she did not notice that there was a pair of gentle eyes beside her that were unhurriedly sweeping over her. There was no warmth in his eyes as he took in her changing emotions. Until, suddenly, a servant ran over, panting. Young master, the pianist over there couldn't be changed. I bumped into young Master Fu on the way and young Master Fu sent someone to us. Sent someone? Ji Yiqing remembered that he did not have much of a relationship with Fu Yanbai. Why was he so polite? Yes, I originally went to the Golden Tripod restaurant to look for the boss and ask if I could hire a pianist. But his pianist happened to apply for leave. When young Master Fu came out, he pushed a lady. At this point, the servant was a little speechless. Fu Yanbai had really pushed that gentle-looking girl to him in front of everyone. Okay, her salary will be 10 times. Ji Yiqing nodded carelessly. Okay, young master. Hearing this, the servant heaved a sigh of relief. However, when everyone saw the young lady who came in with the servant, Yu Ling said instinctively, "It's her." After a while, Yu Ling finally realized that the Song family was gone. It was understandable that Song Yao would appear here. Dong dong. At this thought, Yu Ling could not help but sigh at how times had changed. However, more than that, she felt an inexplicable sense of superiority and joy. Look. The high and mighty eldest young miss of the Song family was now playing the piano for her, a guest. How interesting. Yu Ling could not suppress the smile on her lips. Mr. Ji is such a good person. 10 times the salary. As soon as he finished speaking, before Ji Yiqing could speak, a figure at the side suddenly walked over. Yunj? Ji Yiqing reacted, not knowing what was going on. Yu Ling also frowned and watched as Bei Yunj walked towards Song Yao. Could it be that Song Yao knew Bei Yunj? Impossible. Just as Yu Ling's expression froze, Song Yao was already stunned. Yunj? After regaining her senses, Song Yao regained her senses. With Bei Yunj's identity, it did not seem strange for her to appear here. Seeing Bei Yunj's unhappy expression, Song Yao could not help but smile. Her voice was still as pleasant as a mountain stream. I play the piano quite well. Do you want to hear it? Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows, but in the end, she didn't mention Fu Yanbai. When did you learn the piano? 7 years old. My grandfather taught me. Song Yao's eyes curved. But there are so many people. I might be a little nervous. After saying this, Song Yao sat in front of the piano and fiddled with the keys casually. Bei Yunj looked at her for a while and only chuckled. She sat beside Song Yao, her fingertips landing on the black and white piano keys as she said lazily, "Don't be afraid. Play well." Chapter 609. Song Yao blinked and only smiled. Her gentle and refined appearance was an extremely high self-restraint hidden in her bones. "Thank you, Yunj." Song Yao smiled. It was not only because Bei Yunj was willing to accompany her, but also because Bei Yunj was protecting her pride and dignity. "You're welcome, our eldest Miss Song." Bei Yunj's tone was casual. She sat casually beside Song Yao, making Song Yao feel at ease. With that said, Bei Yunj listened to Song Yao and quickly distinguished which song it was. After a while, the two pairs of hands on the piano played together perfectly. "Soon," someone exclaimed. "Wait a minute, this is Du Zhao's Star River?" Du Zhao's piano piece was from the era of the gods in our nation's music industry. He became famous overnight and became an unsurpassable dark horse. Nowadays, not many people had the confidence to play such a difficult piece in front of so many people. After all, it was a professional level 9 song. "Ah, listen again. Is there Yun's Spring Night Banquet? I'm going to explode." Spring Night Banquet? Some people who did not know did not understand what these people were excited about. You must have heard of the simplified version of Spring Night Banquet. It's Yu Manrin's new song. However, Spring Night Banquet is considered Yun's assignment to the International Musicians Association. It's simply a perfect assignment for the International Musicians Association. The girl said excitedly, "I also heard that it seems like it's because old Mr. Du Xiao has always admired the national style and expressed that he hoped that Yun would create a national style composition. That's why there was this Spring Night Banquet." The original song is too magnificent and shocking. It's like a reappearance of the ancient dynasty. Other than her professionalism, even the simplified version of Yu Manrin's lyrics was written by Yun herself. My professional professor said that this is the benchmark of the national style. The amateurs who did not know much shut up. However, it sounded very godlike. This young lady is so amazing. She actually changed Spring Night Banquet to this. With river as the main theme, the style is harmonious and complements each other. At this thought, the girl suddenly felt very sad. No way. A big boss of this level is playing the piano at a banquet? What about me? After graduation, won't the only way out is to play the eru on the road? Stop dreaming. It's not even your turn to play the eru, her best friend whispered next to her. The girl. Not long after. Suddenly, someone reacted. Isn't that the eldest daughter of the Qin family? The eldest daughter of the Qin family plays the piano so well. Someone was surprised. The one beside him. Looks familiar too. Don't even think about it. To be able to reach this standard, she must be a socialite. That's the demeanor of a great family that's ingrained in their bones. Not far away, Yu Ling, who had heard the discussions around her, almost turned green and red. Her fingers clenched the corner of her skirt. At first, she thought that she could mock Song Yao, but now, she was in the same situation. But what happened in the end? She was just playing the piano on stage, and people were praising her as a socialite. I know the song Spring Night Banquet, too. George couldn't help but sigh. In country your folk songs are actually very difficult to sell. But this Yun became the newcomer king of this year's International Musicians Association with Spring Night Banquet. I heard that there was a conflict within the International Musicians Association previously because Du Xiao loved Yun's talent, but the other leaders disagreed and felt that Yun was too inexperienced. In the end, they didn't expect that Spring Night Banquet was as shocking as star back then. River. Chapter 610. It was his first time seeing someone who was not in our nation cause an uproar in the International Musicians Association. It was unbelievable. Besides, apart from his famous song, there was another reason why Du Xiao could successfully become the president back then. He was an immigrant and his nationality was our nation. This was an unspoken rule. If one wanted to obtain international glory, emigration was the best way to reduce controversy. But it was obvious that Yun had no intention of emigrating. Ever since she became a member of the International Musicians Association, She had not even taken a step into our nation. Even if she had never seen this person before, she could tell this person's character. It was not easy to predict. Yu Ling bit her lip. Aren't you deifying this person too much? He's not deified. Even history will be tolerant of such a person. George shook his head. If a person could reach an extreme in a certain aspect, it would be a contribution to human civilization that could not be ignored. Hearing George say this, Yu Ling did not continue. On the other side, Bei Yunj and Song Yao had also ended their duet. The applause lasted for a long time. Bei Yunj and Song Yao chatted as they walked in front of them. In the next moment, Song Yao and Yu Ling looked at each other. Yu Ling's heart palpitated inexplicably and she panicked before she looked away. However, Song Yao's pupils constricted violently and she clenched her fists, her gaze gradually turning cold. Her lips curved. Yu Ling? Yu Ling did not speak, feeling guilty. So you're not dead. Song Yao's voice was calm, but it was a little scary. Bei Yunj, who was beside her, tugged her hand gently. After all, back then, the Song family was ruined because of this woman. How could Song Yao not hate her? Song Yao before. Thank you for helping me. Yu Ling was afraid that Song Yao would tell her what happened back then. Was it to help? Back then, Miss, you didn't seem to have given me the right to refuse. Song Yao clenched her fists, remembering how Fu Yanbai had humiliated her back then. Song Yao. But weren't we friends back then? Yu Ling bit her lip, afraid that Song Yao would expose her in front of Ji Yiqing. I thought you wouldn't blame me. However, when Ji Yiqing heard this, he unconsciously frowned, and his gaze towards Yu Ling also became colder. How would I dare to be friends with Miss Yu? Song Yao smiled. Her exquisite eyes were less delicate and more tenacious. I will make them pay for this. Song Yao curved her lips, her eyes filled with coldness. After all, you and Fu Yanbai don't deserve to live so well. She had once liked Fu Yanbai, but that was only in the past. Ever since her father's death, the world had changed in her eyes. In the past 2 to 3 years, she had only made one friend, Bei Yunj. At this very moment. Hearing this, a trace of mockery flashed across Yu Ling's eyes. Song Yao was still so naive. Could it be that she still thought she could make Fu Yanbai pay the price? Suddenly, a servant walked over. Young Master Fu outside is asking for someone. At this moment, Ji Yiqing had already roughly guessed what kind of complicated relationship this was. If he gave her to Fu Yanbai, wouldn't Bei Yunj tear him apart? What a joke. Just as expected. In the next moment, he heard Bei Yunj scoff, his tone slightly cold. The Fu Corporation is really capable. Hearing this, the servant also felt that something was wrong. Miss. She smirked. If he wants my person, let him come personally. Chapter 6:11. With that said, Bei Yunj pulled her to the table next door to get desserts. At this moment, just as Yu Ling was feeling mocked that Bei Yunj dared to treat Fu Yanbai like this, the Ji family servant spoke. Young Master, can I get Young Master Fu to ask for her? Yunqi Yujing Garden number 7. Do you want Fu Yanbai to look for her? Hearing this, Ji Yiqing turned around and smiled at the servant. The servant was speechless. Number 7. If he remembered correctly, it was the place where that person from the Hua family lived. What a joke. Who in Yuncheng dared to go to the Hua family to ask for her? You don't have to say anything. Just tell Young Master Fu that Miss Pei took her away. Ji Yiqing could tell that Bei Yunj knew Fu Yanbai too. Yes. After the servant left, Yu Ling could not help but ask, is the Qin family very powerful? Even if it was a new force, would they really dare to go against the Fu Corporation because of Song Yao? The Qin family is like the sun in the sky. The newly appointed President Qin is also very business-minded. It's only a matter of time before they jump into the international market. Ji Yiqing glanced at her and smiled slowly. As for Miss Pei, although her temper isn't too good, I believe the Fu family won't want to go against her friends. Just one was enough to shut the Fu family up. Besides, that person from the Hua family was simply protective. At this moment, Yu Ling felt even worse. Jealousy seemed to be rolling in her chest and she could not suppress it. She forced a smile and said, Then will the Qin family dote on Miss Pei so much? Did they provoke such a strong enemy for the elder young miss? Suddenly, the servant beside her interrupted, her tone filled with envy. The Qin family? The Qin family is famous for doting on their only sister. Back then, our young master was also invited. That birthday banquet at Yutha residence cost more than 100 million yuan. Ji Yiqing did not deny it. And Yu Ling's expression instantly turned ugly. A birthday banquet cost more than 100 million yuan. Yutha residence is a private residence, right? George, who was standing beside Yu Ling, finally heard a familiar name. Ji Yiqing replied, Is the owner of Yutha Mansion a member of Miss Pei's family? George's tone was full of envy. The Yutha Mansion was designed by a famous architect in our country. He spent half of his life to design it. Even the murals in the inner corridor were personally carved by him for 5 years before they were completed. I'm not too sure about that. If you want to take a look, you can ask Miss Pei. Ji Yiqing smiled. That residence belongs to Miss Pei? George asked subconsciously. That's not it. Ji Yiqing chuckled. If Miss Pei likes the moon in the sky, the owner of this mansion will think of a way to pluck it for her. What's more, it's just a mansion. Hearing this, George fell silent. Why was Miss Pei's life better than their country's princess? At this time, Bei Yunj happened to be back. She looked at Ji Yiqing. Did you call me just now? No, but Mr. George wants to visit the Yutha residence. Can you ask your wife? What? Bei Yunj frowned. Just as George panicked and was about to deny it, Ji Yiqing spoke again. It's the place where you celebrated your birthday. Did that person give you the key? The key? No. Without waiting for Ji Yiqing to speak again, Bei Yunj said, My brother gave it to me. He said it was a 19th birthday present. Chapter 6:12. Ji Yiqing was speechless. Why didn't Master Du give him a Platinum Royal Hotel on his 19th birthday? He didn't even manage to get her and he had already given Yutha residence away? What's wrong? Bei Yunj raised an eyebrow. Seeing that Ji Yiqing's expression was not too good, she probed. Is the feng shui of that place bad? Even if the feng shui was bad, she could not return what her brother had given her. Ji Yiqing was speechless. George was speechless. No one had considered this question since the beginning of the last century. Yunj, do you know Yutha residence? Ji Yiqing felt like he could not find his voice. Bei Yunj did not know what Ji Yiqing wanted to ask her. She paused and said, It's a rather old but pretty house. Ji Yiqing was speechless. Bei Yunj turned around and glanced at George. You want to walk around, right? Then I'll go and ask where the keys are. She heard from Hua Shidu that this house needed regular maintenance, so Bei Yunj did not care much about it. No need, no need. George hurriedly rejected. What if he entered and lost something valuable inside and couldn't afford to pay for it? Bei Yunj was speechless. Why are all these people acting so strangely? Yunj, don't lose the keys in the future. Song Yao, who was beside her, suddenly tugged at Bei Yunj's sleeve carefully. Her grandmother used to be an architect and she knew about this Yutha residence. However, she never thought that one day, the owner of this residence would be standing beside her. Bei Yunj felt that something was wrong with this random instruction. However, in the next second, she turned around and asked Shang Yan, Should I send you back first? No need. I'll chat with Mr. Ji for a while. The person who came to fetch me is almost here. Bei Yunj was surprised to see that Shang Yan and Ji Yiqing were getting along well. She nodded. Brother Ji, take care of Shang Yan. Ji Yiqing said with a smile. Okay, be careful when you go back with Miss Song. After Bei Yunj and Song Yao left, Shang Yan smiled. Mr. Ji's wine is very good. It's good that Mr. Shang likes it. Ji Yiqing smiled calmly. He had deliberately mentioned Hua Shidu just now. Clearly, he was afraid that Shang Yan would have feelings for Bei Yunj and wanted Shang Yan to retreat. Shang Yan's fair and slender hands held the wine glass as he looked at the red wine inside. I do like it very much. But I also know that my body can't bear this love. With that said, Shang Yan placed the wine glass on the table. At this moment, only Ji Yiqing knew that Shang Yan was not talking about wine. Ji Yiqing's eyes darkened. He only laughed and didn't say anything. And not long after, suddenly, a young man that Ji Yiqing found familiar walked over. He called out respectfully, but it was not difficult to hear the excitement and nervousness in his voice. President Shang. Yu. A hint of surprise flashed across Ji Yiqing's eyes. Wasn't this the assistant to the top decision-maker of Higgins Group a few years ago? Yu was stunned for a moment before he recognized Ji Yiqing. He smiled and said, "So it's Mr. Ji. You know each other?" Ji Yiqing asked. "This is my boss." Yu nodded. When Ji Yiqing heard this, he was stunned. So, this man in the wheelchair was one of the top decision-makers of Higgins Group back then. Chapter 6:13. Ji Yiqing suddenly felt that Shang Yan's conditions were not bad. If nothing happened to his leg. "Mr. Ji, my people are here too. Let's meet again in the future." Shang Yan smiled. "Mr. Shang, have you not been to Country R in the past few years?" Ji Yiqing asked. After all, he had not heard much about this person in the industry in the past few years. "Yes, but I'll be going back in a while." Shang Yan's words also shocked Yu, who was pushing the wheelchair behind him. Was President Shang finally willing to come back? In the past, no matter what he said, Shang Yan was unwilling to hear any more news from Country R. He thought that it would be difficult for him to see Shang Yan pull himself together in this lifetime. At this moment, Yu Ling, who was observing from the side, also sensed that this man in the wheelchair probably had an extraordinary identity. She clenched her fists instinctively, her nails almost digging into her flesh. She bit her lower lip tightly and her eyes were dark. God was really unfair. Why was it that a person like Bei Yunji's life was so smooth? She could get what she wanted with just a curl of her finger? What about her? Her mother had passed away and her father was only a high school teacher. She had been taught to tolerate since she was young. Why should she give in to these people? Why couldn't she have a good life? At this thought, Yu Ling's jealousy almost swallowed her rationality, and her expression was a little ferocious. No. Back then, if she could snatch everything from Song Yao, she could also snatch everything from Bei Yunji. On the way. "Are you unhappy?" Potato asked. Bei Yunji could not help but tug at Song Yao's braid. Her eyes filled with amusement. Song Yao glanced at her in amusement. After holding it in for a moment, she suddenly took off her yellow sun hat and put it on Bei Yunji's head. "No." Bei Yunji was speechless. Bei Yunji took off her hat slowly and stopped tormenting her. As for Song Yao, she used to act like a lady, but ever since she was tortured by Bei Yunji, she had become more cheerful than before. "Yunji, thank you for today." Song Yao had two dimples when she smiled, looking sweet and quiet. Bei Yunji raised her eyebrows. "You're welcome, Sister Yao." Song Yao was speechless. This guy was really childish and liked to take advantage of others. Bei Yunji knew that Song Yao and Jian Shi had similar hobbies. One of them had the nickname Jian Sisi, while the other had taken her phone after adding her on WeChat and added herself as Song Yao Yao. What a strange hobby of repeating words. To be honest, Yunji, I really want to make Fu Yanbai and Yu Ling pay the price through myself. But I know that I'm nothing now. Song Yao's eyes darkened. Previously, she had always felt that if Yu Ling was still alive, she would make Yu Ling and Fu Yanbai regret it. But today, when Yu Ling really appeared in front of her, she realized that she was no longer the eldest young Miss Song of the past. The Song enterprise was gone. She had nothing. Are there any other doubts about what happened back then? Bei Yunji asked. My father's company didn't do anything illegal or illegal. Fu Yanbai only put pressure on those who worked with my father, and made the Song family isolated and helpless. Song Yao shook her head. At this point, she could not help feeling a lump in her throat. Back then, she had heard her father and Fu Yanbai's conversation. Fu Yanbai said that as long as the Song family drew a clear line between them, nothing would happen to the Song family. Chapter 6:14. Father Song's love for Song Yao, his only daughter, could be said to be afraid that she would melt in his mouth and fall in his hands. Yao Yao. Bei Yunji was suddenly silent for a moment. Do you mind if I investigate the cause of your father's death? Song Yao was stunned for a moment before she looked up at Bei Yunji. Cause of death. Bei Yunji did not speak and only looked at her. Song Yao's voice was a little hoarse. Sure, thank. Bei Yunji covered half of Song Yao's head with the sun hat and covered her face. I'll stand with you for a while. I'll send you home later in case Auntie thinks too much. Hearing Bei Yunja's voice, the emotions that Song Yao had suppressed for so many years and the mask that pretended to be strong in her heart cracked like a flood breaking through a dam. At first, she was just sobbing, but later on, she could not help but sob. After sending Song Yao back, Bei Yunj realized that there was a wet patch on her clothes. It was all because of Song Yao's uncontrollable tears when she suddenly hugged her. Bei Yunj was speechless. It was a little terrible. At this moment, Old Master Lung happened to call. Yunj, is it convenient to answer the call? Bei Yunj answered the call. Yes, what's wrong, Old Master Lung? It's about the matter you asked me to help investigate last time. I asked a rather capable junior to send you the phone number. After all, Old Master Lang was in the war zone and it was not easy for him to deal with such matters. Okay, thank you, Old Master Lang. Child, why are you thanking me? Old Master Lang was grinning from ear to ear, but he was afraid of disturbing Bei Yunja's rest, so he hung up quickly. Soon, after Bei Yunj returned from the shower, she glanced at the name Old Master Lung had written and called this person. Number 7-inch hello? I'm Bei Yunj. After the call went through, Bei Yunj said. Hello, my name is Lu Jian. I'm the captain of Yun Cheng's investigation team. The voice of the person who spoke also sounded like he had a perfect pronunciation. Bei Yunj smirked. Captain Lu. Miss Pei, you're too kind. I heard from Old Master Lung that you want to investigate the matter of the eldest daughter of the Song family who went bankrupt 2 years ago? Captain Lu asked. Everything else can be put aside for now. But Song Yao's college entrance examination results were suppressed back then and her student status was changed. I want to seek justice for her. When Bei Yunj said this, his tone was casual, but there was no warmth in it. Miss Pei, you should know who suppressed Miss Song's results, right? He wasn't afraid of getting into trouble, but this Miss Pei, wasn't that a little too daring? Yes. Bei Yunja's smile did not reach her eyes. Captain Lu, can you do me a favor? I will be responsible for all the consequences. Sure, Captain Lu replied. Thank you, Captain Lu. Also, can you help me investigate the cause of Song Yao's father's death? Upon hearing Bei Yunja's question, Captain Lu could not help but ask, Miss Pei, aren't you afraid of being retaliated against? That depends on how capable he is. Bei Yunj raised her eyebrows and spoke in an indescribably arrogant tone. Then, no problem. 2 days later, there was a huge piece of gossip in Yun Cheng. The young master of the Fu Corporation had actually been brought to the police station from the company. Currently, the news was sealed off and no one knew what had happened. Over here. Old Master Fu sat in the visiting room with a dark expression. He raised his walking stick and pointed it at Fu Yenbai, questioning in a low voice, What on earth did you do outside? He had asked several old friends, but none of them could get Fu Yenbai out. Chapter 6:15. Fu Yenbai's expression was also cold. From the moment he entered the police station, he had figured out who the person who did this was. Other than Bei Yunj, no one was willing to do this for Song Yao. He really did not expect Huashidu to dote on Bei Yunj so much. Fu Yenbai had always felt that Huashidu must have instructed him to do this. Song Yao killed Yu Ling, so I'm asking Song Yao to pay the debt. Fu Yenbai said expressionlessly. When Old Master Fu heard this, he was so angry that he slammed the table and stood up, slapping Fu Yenbai. This commotion was not small and it scared the office staff standing by the side. There was also a very red palm print on Fu Yenbai's fair and handsome face. Old Master Fu really did not show any mercy. So you were the one who did this to the Song family? For that indecent woman? Old Master Fu was trembling with anger as he questioned. Previously, he had heard his mahjong friends say that something was wrong with the Song family, but he did not understand what they meant. But now he understood. This bastard did all of this. Is that you woman worth you doing this? What did you do to Song Yao? Her college entrance examination results are gone. I was the one who made her go from year 3 to year 2. At this point, Fu Yenbai suddenly smirked sarcastically. If it wasn't for this, I wouldn't have planned to let her graduate. He knew that Song Yao would not give up on studying. Her pursuit was the academic circle. Therefore, he wanted to see how Song Yao stopped at the last step and had no choice but to give up everything. You're a man and you did such a thing to a young girl? Old Master Fu felt that his heart was beating too fast and he was about to faint from anger at this bastard. If it wasn't for her, Yu Ling wouldn't have jumped into the sea. Fu Yanbai still did not think that he was wrong. However, Old Master Fu really wanted to strangle this stubborn bastard to death with his own hands. Do you know what the people I found told me? At most, they'll reduce your sentence and let you go to jail for 1 year less. Grandpa, Huashidu did this. Of course, it's useless for you to find someone else. Fu Yanbai's eyes darkened. He wanted to see if Huashidu could dote on Bei Yunj so brazenly in front of these elders. Sure do. Old Master Fu was stunned. He did not understand why Huashidu would do this. Japan. Huashidu received a call from Old Master Fu. Shidu, how have you been? A strange look flashed across Huashidu's pale-colored eyes and he said in a low voice, pretty good. Is Grandpa Fu in good health? If Fu Yanbai doesn't do such beastly things, I can also live a long life. Huashidu smiled. What happened? Hearing Huashidu's question, Old Master Fu was puzzled. If Huashidu was the one who did this, how could he pretend not to know? Shidu, do you have a little girl with you? Huashidu replied unhurriedly. Yes. Old Master Fu was silent for a moment. Then about Song Yao. Did you help gather evidence and get Yanbai to go to the police station? Hearing this, Huashidu raised his eyebrows slowly and the pen in his hand paused. Fu Yanbai went to the police station? Huashidu's eyes darkened. After thinking for a while, he rubbed the pen with his fingers. This seemed to be done by that child. However, Huashidu did not expect this young girl to do such a big thing without batting an eyelid. He smiled silently. Chapter 616. Grandpa Fu, I'm sorry. My child is insensible. When the man said this, he was slow and did not sound apologetic. Old Master Fu could tell that something was wrong. Shidu, you don't know about this either? Huashidu had always been a person who did not hide anything. Old Master Fu had watched him grow up, so of course he knew this. The young lady has done a lot of things. It's indeed quite difficult to know everything. Although he said that, it was not difficult for Old Master Fu to hear the doting tone in his voice. What made Old Master Fu unable to believe was that the person who could dote on the young lady like this was that aloof Huashidu. Old Madame Hua had complained a lot that her eldest grandson was unreliable. This was only slightly better than being a monk. Shidu, can you help Grandpa Fu? Old Master Fu asked. Old Master Fu was a reasonable person, but in the end, Fu Yanbai was his biological grandson. I want to help you too, Grandpa Fu. Huashidu's low and calm voice was pleasing to the ear. But that young lady is vengeful. Whether I can start a family early in the future will depend on her. Soon. Song Yao also found out about this because Old Master Fu came looking for her. She did not expect Fu Yanbai to really be sent to the police station. Miss Song, I'm really sorry. Yanbai has gone overboard in this matter. I will definitely teach him a lesson. Old Master Fu raised his walking stick and bowed to Song Yao solemnly. Old Master Fu, you. Song Yao took a step back instinctively, but was interrupted by Old Master Fu. Is Mrs. Song all right? Mother maintains a breakfast shop and occasionally sells desserts. I also work myself and can maintain my life. The Song family's matter has already caused this. Our Fu family has an unshirkable responsibility. Old Master Fu asked, Miss Song, if you don't mind, I'm willing to bear all the expenses for you and Mrs. Song. Old Master Fu, you're too polite. Song Yao clenched her fists subconsciously and pursed her red lips. Old Master Fu said, Miss Song, don't think too much. I'm only doing this to compensate the Song family and repay my grandson's debt. Suddenly. Old Master Fu, Fu Yanbai's debt was a life. It's very difficult to repay it. Old Master Fu froze instinctively. Then he turned around and saw Bei Yunj walking in. He hesitated. You are? Sir, I'm Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj's lips curved into a smile. Old Master Fu looked at Bei Yunj for a long time. He didn't expect such a girl to make Fu Yanbai unable to get out of the police station. I know you. You were the one who collected the evidence against Yanbai, right? Bei Yunj replied calmly. Yes. There was a long silence. Song Yao instinctively grabbed Bei Yunj and shielded her slightly behind her. But in the next moment, Old Master Fu sighed. That's true. It's just karma. Bei Yunj didn't dislike the old man. Sir, you don't have to run around for your grandson. If it wasn't for that woman, Yanbai wouldn't have done such a thing. Halfway through his words, old Master Fu didn't want to talk about the matter between Fu Yanbai and that woman anymore. He only looked up at Song Yao helplessly and said sincerely, Miss Song, I'm very sorry about your father's death. Chapter 6:17. Old Master Fu, you don't owe me. Song Yao took a deep breath and smiled faintly. I have a good part-time job now. There's no need to trouble the Fu family. Seeing Song Yao's firm attitude, old Master Fu did not say anything else. After old Master Fu left, Song Yao suppressed the strange emotions in her heart and turned to look at Bei Yunj. Yunj, how did you send Fu Yanbai in? I asked a friend for help. Bei Yunj's words made Song Yao suddenly feel that she was the worst of Bei Yunj's friends. Yunj, Song Yao pursed her lips and her voice became softer. Did I cause you a lot of trouble? Bei Yunj knocked Song Yao's head and suddenly asked without rhyme or reason. Is Auntie Song here? Can I go and have a meal? Song Yao was stunned for a moment before she laughed. Sure. My mother has wanted you to come to our house as a guest for a long time, but she was afraid that you would dislike it. It was not a good thing to offend Fu Yanbai. I do owe him a favor for making someone I just met busy collecting evidence. But this is not trouble. Bei Yunj had just finished afternoon tea with Elder Zhong and called Hua Shidu when she came back. However, seeing that Hua Shidu did not answer, she called the landline in the study. At the Computing Institute, the blonde old man, who was waiting for Hua Shidu in the study, asked. Bei Yunj, who was leaning against the pantry and plucking Si Chengyan's bonsai, stopped. However, she did not expect an old man from our nation with a Neely accent to answer the call. Hello, who are you? She could not help but chuckle. Grandpa. Although Bei Yunj had never been to the Hua family's old mansion, she still knew that old Master Hua had passed away a long time ago. The old man did not seem to be very patient and his tone was filled with displeasure. I'm the grandfather of the owner of this house. Hearing this, for a moment, Bei Yunj almost thought that she had called the wrong number. Before Mr. Fernans could finish his words, he suddenly heard the other party say lazily, It's fine. What a coincidence. Grandpa. I'm here to ask the owner of this house for living expenses. As for this old man with an authentic Neely accent, it was obvious that he was a liar. Who are you? Let me tell you, I don't have so much time to chat with a girl like you. It seems like you don't know. As Bei Yunj walked to her research lab, she sent a message to Hua Shidu as she smiled lazily. I've been raised by him for a long time. He's the one who gave me my living expenses. Mr. Fernans paused. What did you say? A girl was asking for livings to ask for living expenses? You're a liar. Mr. Fernan's voice turned cold as he refused to admit it. Believe it or not, that's up to you. S2zzzzzz. Bei Yunj GGE. What? Bei Yunj's interest was piqued. She wanted to know how long this old gentleman, who was not good at deception, could continue acting. Teet. Bei Yunj chuckled when she heard this old man calling her a thief. Then, her lips suddenly curled up and she said leisurely, If you don't want anything to happen, I think you'd better take some action. On the other hand, Mr. Fernans widened his eyes. He could not believe that this young lady had made extortion sound so fresh and refined. Shouldn't most young ladies think about how to get his approval first? Why did she start extorting him directly? Chapter 6:18. Little girl, aren't you too short-sighted? Do you know how rich I am? The old man asked in disbelief. Bei Yunj smiled when she heard that. After she sent the message, she started to write the experiment report. We young people are only interested in earning quick money. The old man was speechless. Think carefully, Grandpa. With that, Bei Yunj hung up the phone and looked at the message she had sent to Hua Shidu. However, she guessed that he was still in a meeting and did not see it. The security system is too lousy. Bei Yunj objectively evaluated the hotel Hua Shidu was staying at. At this moment, old Mr. Fernans, who was sitting in Neely Hotel, felt that he had fallen into the #1 crisis of his old age. He really did not expect that the biological grandson he was most proud of would actually do such a thing. Although it was not uncommon to keep young girls as mistresses in the industry. But if it was exposed, it would still have a certain impact. No sigh, did you hear that? The old man thought of this and looked anxiously at his old butler. That old sir, after all, Mr. Huashidu is just a young man full of vigor. Actually, this is very normal. Nosai said softly. You're right, you're right. The old man nodded. Not long after, he immediately grabbed Nosai's hand. Nosai, quick! Send a message to this girl and ask her for her bank account number. Are you planning to? Nosai hesitated for a moment. There were 7 biological grandsons in the family, but the only one who could make the old man take the initiative to pay hush money was probably Mr. Huashidu, who had the worst relationship with the old man. Aren't you talking nonsense? Shidu's reputation is very important. Hearing that, Nosai quickly sent a message to Bei Yunj. At this moment, 27kk Bei Yunj was still writing a report and did not read the message. But a few minutes later, Bei Yunj's phone kept ringing with unknown calls. Bei Yunj's eyebrows moved and she picked it up without looking. Who is it? The old man could not wait any longer and snatched the phone from Nosai. Give me your bank account number. After that, the old man immediately hung up the phone, as if he didn't want to say another word to Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj? ? Were scammers nowadays so competitive? Bei Yunj laughed, leaned back in the chair, and slowly sent the card number over. Si Qingyan, who was passing by, glanced at Bei Yunj, whose eyes were curved, and felt a chill run down his spine. The last time Bei Yunj smiled at him like that, his half-year prize had been taken away by Bei Yunj. At the thought of this, Si Qingyan hurriedly went to the pantry, not daring to stay in this troublesome place. In the research room, Bei Yunj had just finished writing her report when she saw several text messages. Your debit card ending with XXXX received 10 million yuan at 14:30 on October 5th. Your savings card ending with XXXX received 100 million yuan at 14:32 on October 5th. Your savings card ending with XXXX received 100 million yuan at 14:35 on October 5th. Bei Yunj. Were all scammers these days so sincere? After coming back to her senses, Bei Yunj was about to make a call when she received several text messages from unknown numbers. How much is your annual living expenses? I'll give my grandson this much in advance. Is a year enough? Bei Yunj. At this moment, Bei Yunj vaguely felt that she had gone overboard again. On Neely's side. Chapter 619. The old man had even told his grandchildren in the past that if anyone brought up the matter of their lover, he would not have a grandson. But in the end, he had to pay for his favorite grandson's living expenses to keep the little girl? Did I give too little? The old man could not help but ask Nosai, does this amount not match the value of our Fernan's family? I don't think that's the problem. It was unknown if the old man had heard him, but he nodded to himself and said, anyway, Shidu doesn't seem to be planning to get married. It's fine to have a little girl by his side. If what she wanted was money, then this relationship would be very strong. After all, our Fernan's family has plenty of money. Then, the old man came to a realization and was pleasantly surprised. Then, didn't I buy Shidu a love that will never be lost? Nosai. Was he crazy or was the old man crazy? Old man, you. Before Nosai could finish speaking, he suddenly received a text message on his phone. Old man, I'm sorry. I was joking with you just now. As soon as he saw this message clearly, Nosai saw that the money that he had just transferred to Bei Yunj had been transferred back. This speed was even faster than when they had just transferred the money. But how did Bei Yunj know their bank information? Just as Nosai was thinking about this question, the old man's expression changed. He asked solemnly, does she really think it's too little? Nosai hurriedly said, old man, don't be anxious. Let me ask. Hurry, hurry, hurry. The old man urged nervously. On the other side. Although Bei Yunj felt that this old man was quite strange, he did not seem like someone who would steal, so she did not care much. Ran one, however, not long after, Bei Yunj turned around and saw the old man sending money crazily. It was as if the 9-digit number was just a number to him. Bei Yunj. Looking at the endless transfer records, Bei Yunj's eyelids twitched and she immediately turned on her computer. A few minutes later, Norsi received a phone call. After hanging up, he said to the old man, Sir, there seems to be a problem with our account at the bank. We can't transfer the money to that lady. Why is there a problem now? The old man frowned unhappily. Maybe. It was a little too much just now. Notch's eyelids twitched. The living expenses that old Mr. gave that little girl were several times more than the living expenses of his own young master and young mistress. Yet, he still felt that it wasn't enough. Why didn't he let Mr. Huashidu and that little girl get married on the spot? No, I must make that little girl realize that our Fernand's family has money. The old man was very insistent. Notchi. Why was this kind of nouveau riche behavior vividly displayed by the head of an aristocratic family? On the other side, Bei Yunj was also returning this unexpected fortune to the original owner. Suddenly, Huashidu called. After answering the call, Bei Yunj heard the man's deep and pleasant voice. What's the matter, Yun Yun? Brother, do you have another grandfather? Bei Yunj's question made Huashidu, who had just finished a meeting, gradually darken his pale-colored eyes. Not long after, he said slowly, the Hua family is actually my mother's home. Strictly speaking, I take my mother's surname. Chapter 620. Hearing this, Bei Yunj was stunned for a moment. She could roughly guess the reason behind this. Where did you find out about this? The man lowered his voice and laughed. His deep voice still sounded casual. I just made a call. An old man picked up. Bei Yunj did not hide it. She silently transferred all the money that the old man had just transferred back. She could also tell that her brother did not have a good relationship with that old man. What did you say to him? Bei Yunj said, I asked him to give me some money to spend. Not long after. The man's low laughter was tainted with a layer of bewitching magnetism through the electric current, and it tickled her. Bei Yunj also roughly explained what had happened just now. After hearing this, the man only said casually, Little liar. How could she know that this was really Huashidu's biological grandfather? Suddenly, the man's deep and magnetic voice carried a frivolous smile as he whispered into her ear. Yun Yun, do you want to be my child bride so much? Hearing this, Bei Yunj could not take it anymore and hung up the phone. In a company meeting room in our nation, the man's low and hoarse laughter could not help but ring out. The female secretary who came in blushed and her heart skipped a beat when she saw the man's handsome and noble appearance. This man's eyes were beautiful, and his smile was completely electrifying. It was affectionate and seductive. Mr. Hua. The female secretary revealed her most impeccable smile. Boss is on the way and will be here soon. Do you need me to do anything for you? However, as soon as she finished speaking, the smile in the man's eyes had already disappeared. His pale-colored eyes were light and abstinent. No need. The Huashidu in front of her was not like the men she had seen in the past. It was as if he was not interested in her existence. The female secretary's competitive spirit was aroused. She walked to Huashidu's side and sat gently on the conference table. Her soft and boneless hand brushed past the side of her snow-white thigh. A man like Mr. Hua is swift and decisive in the business world. I think you have a strong desire to conquer other aspects. The female secretary's voice was low and gentle, as if she was flirting. If it was someone else, she would have already used the tip of her shoe to lightly rub against the man's trousers. However, she felt an inexplicable sense of fear towards this man. He always felt that it was unattainable. If this is EOM's cooperative attitude, we can tell Hamo not to come here. Huashidu suddenly stood up. His tone was light and lazy, but his eyes were cold and distant. Hearing this, the female secretary panicked and her expression changed drastically. Mr. Hua, I didn't mean that. She had heard that Mr. Hua was a very clean and honest person. But did he really not need any consolation when he was alone in a foreign land? Miss, isn't it time for you to leave? At this moment, Sang-Soo walked in and asked with a smile. What the hell? In Yunqing, she had to guard against those women with bad intentions. In Neely, these women were even bolder. I'm sorry, Mr. Hua, Sang-Soo quickly interrupted her with a smile. Madam, President Hua doesn't like to be disturbed. The woman's expression changed. Without saying anything, she walked out. Did you let her in just now? Huashidu's voice sounded unhurriedly. Chapter 621. I hired you to work here to be a door god? Sang-Soo could not refute for a moment. After struggling for a moment, he could only accept his fate. Master Du, this won't happen again. Huashidu glanced at him casually and did not say anything else. 2 days later. 5 in the morning. Bei Yunj had just gone downstairs to get some water and stood in front of the dining table when she suddenly saw the man walking in. She was stunned. "Brother, you!" Wuxia had just gotten off the plane when he returned. He saw that the young lady was wearing a spaghetti dress and her black hair was draped lazily over her shoulders. She was not afraid of catching a cold at all. "Yun, you still did a lot of things when I wasn't around." The man curled his lips and took a thin blanket from the sofa. He covered the girl's shoulders and rubbed her head as a punishment. Bei Yunj put down the glass of water. "Are you talking about the Fu Corporation? I heard from Grandpa Fu that you got Fu Yanbai involved," Wuxia said slowly. Wuxia said slowly. She could not tell if he was unhappy. "Yes." Bei Yunj's eyes were clear and she did not hide it. "Don't let Fu Yanbai's matter affect the Fu Corporation." The man reached out casually and pinched her cheek. His low and magnetic voice was lazy. He might not be the one to inherit it. Bei Yunj was stunned. Are there any other heirs to the Fu Corporation? Wasn't Fu Yanbai the only child? There's also an illegitimate child. Wuxia said casually. Bei Yunj understood. Old Master Fu doesn't have any intention of changing the heir, right? Let's see if that illegitimate child has some ability. Bei Yunj had always thought that if Wuxia knew about this, he would probably ask her to stop. However, she did not expect Wuxia to help her instead. "Brother, are you planning to help that person?" Bei Yunj asked. "The Fu Corporation has to be kept. As for who inherits it, it has nothing to do with me." Wuxia's thin red lips curled into a casual smile as he scratched her chin. At the Computing Institute, Bei Yunj spent the next 2 weeks preparing for a new project. Seeing that the door to Bei Yunj's research lab was tightly shut, Si Chengyan, who was in the courtyard, could not help but take a few more glances. "What are you looking at?" Zhong Shanglin patted Si Chengyan's shoulder and asked in confusion. "No, I just can't imagine that someone of Master Pei's age can be so crazy when it comes to research." Si Chengyan couldn't help but admire him. Wasn't this patience a little too good? It had been more than 2 weeks. When he met Bei Yunj on the road, she didn't say a word. She seemed to be thinking about her research project. Before he could say anything, the man had already returned to the research room. "You're the one who jumps up and down like a monkey every day. How dare you say that she's crazy?" Zhong Shanglin had always been biased. He started to compare Bei Yunj and Si Chengyan the moment they disagreed. Si Chengyan was speechless. After he finished a project, he would have to rest for at least 3 months. He was not like this person, who continuously worked on the next project. However, Yunj is still young. It's not appropriate for her to stay in the research room all the time, Zhong Shanglin frowned and said worriedly. "Then how about this? I heard that Neely University has placed the competition in the center of Yuncheng. Why don't I take her around?" Si Chengyan also felt that Bei Yunj's life should not only be about research. If she continued to stay like this, not to mention her body, she would probably have more psychological problems. Chapter 622. Who else could it be for? They just want to meet our noble and cold scientific researcher. Si Chengyan chuckled. Zhong Shanglin was speechless. Why were those people still unwilling to give up? But don't worry. I heard Master Pei's conversation, and heard her personally reject Neely University's invitation to meet. Si Chengyan was still holding the thermos flask in his hand as he sighed. Our family is a hot treasure now. After all, the double nomination of the Farisk Award and the Busaka Award was indeed very shocking. There's no way they can snatch it now. Zhong Shanglin laughed coldly and pointed at the dozen bodyguards at the door. Do you see that? This door can only be entered, but not exited. Si Chengyan was speechless. Where did you find those people? All along, Si Chengyan had thought that Zhong Shanglin had gotten them to fight with someone for Bei Yunj. He was afraid that others would snatch what he had painstakingly poached. Zhong Shanglin could also see Si Chengyan's disdain. He reached out and knocked his head, his expression dark. What do you mean, where did you find them? This is what the higher-ups want. The higher-ups want? Si Chengyan was stunned. Zhong Shanglin said, to maintain safety. I'm afraid that criminals will target our computing institute. Si Chengyan was speechless. Why didn't we receive this treatment in the past? Hearing this, Zhong Shanglin looked at him and smiled without saying anything. When Si Chengyan saw this, he understood the reason. So they were here to protect Bei Yunj. Why didn't they just guard the entrance of her research lab? How spectacular would it be if they surrounded her? Si Chengyan could no longer suppress the envy, jealousy, and hatred in his heart. That will depend on when Yunj reveals her identity. Instantly, Si Chengyan understood. So it wasn't that he didn't want to stand at the door, but that she didn't want him. When would it be his turn to receive such treatment as a national treasure? Do your research well. You'll probably have this treatment in more than 10 years. Zhong Shanglin patted Si Chengyan's shoulder. Si Chengyan was speechless. This kind of consolation was worse than no consolation at all. At the end of the day, Si Chengyan was also very talented. Otherwise, how could he become a professor at Yun University in his 20s? However, ever since Bei Yunj appeared, she had given the others too much pressure. By the way, when did the competition in the city center start? Zhong Shanglin asked. Si Chengyan replied without hesitation, 2:30 this afternoon. Zhong Shanglin. Now, who the hell would dare to get Bei Yunj out of the lab? Go and get him out. If you can't get him out, don't even think about getting this month's salary. Zhong Shanglin pushed him towards the entrance of Bei Yunj and he slipped away quickly. Si Chengyan. Was this something a human would do? After turning around, Si Chengyan knocked on the door. Master Pei. Si Chengyan knocked a few times before the door suddenly opened. He saw Bei Yunj, whose expression was a little dark. Her excessively beautiful eyes were filled with impatience. What's wrong? Do you want to go to the city center with me? The moment Si Chengyan finished speaking, the door closed with a bang. At the same time, Bei Yunj said resolutely. No. Si Chengyan, who had almost been rejected, was speechless. A few minutes later, Bei Yunj returned to the computer and looked at the virtual data she had written. Not long after she sat down, she received another call. Chapter 623. Bei Yunj glanced at the caller ID and answered the call. What's wrong? Song Yao, who was preparing for the competition, noticed that Bei Yunj's voice seemed a little hoarse. I'm having a competition this afternoon. Are you coming to watch? Song Yao's voice was gentle and soft, making people like her immediately. I'm busy. Bei Yunj stared at the screen intently. But I'm a little nervous to go on stage alone. Hearing this, Bei Yunj stopped working on the keyboard and asked, Are Tich and the rest not around? Tich and Jasmine are student notaries. It's not good for them to interact with me on the field. Song Yao glanced at her watch and smiled. If you don't come, it's meaningless to get first place. However, she did not expect to see Si Chengyan the moment she pushed open the door. Bei Yunj's eyes suddenly curved. Brother Yen? Si Chengyan was speechless. He hated Bei Yunj calling him that now. Hearing this, Bei Yunj smirked. After saving the data on the computer, he stood up. Okay, wait for me for half an hour. With that said, Bei Yunj hung up the call, took off his clean white coat, and walked out. Lend me a car? I want to go to the city center. Soon. Every time she called him, nothing good would happen. What do you want now? Si Chengyan took a deep breath. My friend is having a competition. I'll go take a look. Bei Yunj probably did not rest well. The moment the air conditioner in the car was turned on, his voice was slightly hoarse and nasal. Si Chengyan looked at Bei Yunj in the back seat. She was wearing a loose sweater and even the hood covered most of her face. She was leaning lazily against the car seat with her arms crossed and he could not help frowning. Si Chengyan drove her to the city center. Because Bei Yunj did not have a driver's license, he did not dare to borrow her car. Why are you going to the city center? Si Chengyan could not help but be puzzled. But now, with Bei Yunj's crazy research, her body would not be able to take it sooner or later. Nothing will happen. Bei Yunj licked her lips. Her voice was still hoarse. Yunj, haven't you been too unrestrained recently? If this goes on, how long do you think you can live? There were also many scholars in the scientific research circle. Due to their profession, they were exposed to too much radiation, their lifespans were shortened, or their appearances were damaged. However, in the field of computing, as long as he took good care of his body, there would not be any accidents. At this moment, someone pointed at the girl in the white dress and said enviously, "She has such a good temperament." "You're talking about that?" "That seems to be a student from Neely University's Art Academy. Her name seems to be Yu Ling." The girl recognized Yu Ling, Neely University? "That's amazing." Si Chengyan couldn't take it anymore and threw a bottle of water behind him. In the city center auditorium. "Look at that big sister, she's so pretty." Yu Ling also heard the discussions behind her. The corners of her lips curled up at the perfect angle, as if she was used to these praises. "Spirit. She's more than just amazing. She's one of the student notaries for this year's math competition. You have to know that all the previous notaries are influential figures in Neely University." Hearing this, everyone looked at Yu Ling with even more admiration. "She's so good-looking and so outstanding? Is she the female lead who walked out of the movie?" In the distance, Yu Ling's mentor called out to her. "Professor, what's wrong?" Yu Ling took small steps forward and asked with a smile. "Go and gather with the other student notaries. The competition will be official soon." Chapter 624. Who are the other student notaries? Yu Ling didn't know about this. She was able to get this spot because she knew a senior who happened to have an infectious disease and couldn't go abroad. As for the school, they couldn't find any other students to replace them, so they found Yu Ling, who was already in Yuncheng. Tich and Jasmine. The tutor's eyes were proud and he couldn't stop smiling. They are the students of. Yu Ling had some impression of this name. She seemed to have heard this person's name a lot recently. An amazing scientific researcher. The tutor praised with some regret. "This is the first time I've seen such a genius, but she's from Country A." Country A? Yu Ling was stunned for a moment and couldn't help but look at her tutor. She was actually aware of some of the bad practices in Country R's academic circle. Many scholars in Country R actually had a lot of prejudice and conflict against scholars from Country A. Not to mention praising a scholar from Country A so straightforwardly. So, how amazing was this person that these arrogant people were willing to admit it? That's right. The tutor looked at Yu Ling and smiled. "You won't understand even if I tell you this. Such an existence is a genius that every big country is willing to fight for." Being said so straightforwardly, the smugness on Yu Ling's face instantly disappeared and she even stiffened. "Is that so? I have to admit that Country A is developing rapidly now. But in reality, it will take at least 200 years for Country A's computing field to catch up with Country R." The tutor shook his head and smiled helplessly. But now, it doesn't seem to be the case. A genius who appeared out of nowhere could easily cause a change in the world situation. Is that amazing?" Lele asked. Yu Ling couldn't help but ask. "Yes, we estimate that Country A's computing field will make an immeasurable leap in the years she's alive." The tutor was sincere and envious. "But I heard that she seems to be very young. Maybe only in her 30s or 40s. The younger she was, the faster Country A's computing field would grow." At this moment, after the tutor finished speaking, he felt that he had said too much and immediately said to Yu Ling, "Go look for Tich and the others." "Okay." Yu Ling lowered her head and no one could tell what she was thinking. Last time, when she left the Ji family, it was obvious that Ji Yiqing had no interest in her. But now, she had the chance to come into contact with Tich and Jasmine. The two of them were famous second-generation heirs of the richest families in Country R. If she could befriend one of them, she wouldn't have to live like before anymore. Thinking of this, Yu Ling's eyes darkened and she quickened her pace. Soon, in the long corridor backstage, she saw two handsome foreign men. Yu Ling blushed. "Is it Mr. Jasmine and Mr. Tich?" Jasmine's appearance was handsome and unruly. His temperament was a little roguish, and his pair of blue eyes were mesmerizing. As soon as Yu Ling's eyes met his, she couldn't look away. "You are." Jasmine leaned against the wall lazily and glanced at Yu Ling. "I'm Neely's student notary. Teacher. Hopes that we can go find him together." "All right, let's go together then." Jasmine nodded, but after that, he chatted with Tich the entire time. He didn't even look at Yu Ling. Chapter 625. Tich didn't know what Jasmine was thinking. Did he like Song Yao? Was he being too daring? If they broke up and his ex-girlfriend was his teacher's good friend, was there anything more suffocating than this? Seeing that Tich ignored him, Jasmine was still immersed in his own imagination. How could he woo his teacher's good friend? At this moment, when Yuling heard the word Yao, she panicked inexplicably. However, when she regained her senses, she immediately dismissed her thoughts. What a joke! With Song Yao's current status, she did not even have much contact with the upper-class society. How could she come into contact with a rich second-generation heir like Jasmine? Yuling calmed her nervous breathing and said with a smile, "Mr. Jasmine, do you have a girl you like?" Jasmine glanced at Yuling and only nodded, not saying anything. Hearing this, Yuling felt an inexplicable imbalance in her heart. She did not know who had captured the heart of a top young master so easily. She was most likely one of those noble ladies who was well matched in terms of social status. Yuling gave a fake smile. "Mr. Jasmine is so outstanding. Why don't you dare to express your feelings? With my status, I might not have the right to woo her." Jasmine had added Song Yao's account some time ago and clicked into Song Yao's WeChat moments. He had almost secretly taken photos of Bei Yunj. She would not show her face. At most, she would only show her side profile slightly. However, those who were familiar with her would be able to recognize Bei Yunj at a glance. When Yuling heard this, she felt that her guess was right. "I think that young lady should be very beautiful and capable, right? Unlike me, who studied design and barely got into Neely University," Yuling said with a smile. Tich glanced at Yuling and said nothing. At this moment, Jasmine's eyelids lifted slightly as he casually agreed. "Yes, it's very impressive." Yuling's expression changed and her smile froze. Shouldn't most of the guys be praising her tactfully at this moment? At this moment, Yuling did not say anything else. The three of them went backstage to look at the machines needed for the competition. Tich and Jasmine were not interested in this and did not pay much attention. On Yuling's side, she casually flipped through the competition group and suddenly saw a familiar name. Song Yao. Yuling's eyes darkened and she suddenly remembered that Song Yao had been forced to repeat high school by Fu Yanbai. So it turned out to be true. The corners of Yuling's lips suddenly curled up and she was in a good mood. She never thought that one day, she would be a notary and Song Yao would be a competitor. In the past, Song Yao was the top student in Yuncheng First High. He was more outstanding than her in every aspect. He looked so high and mighty. Thinking of this, Yuling laughed mockingly. Then, she recalled the words she had heard on the road earlier. They seemed to be discussing that Xia Ning was also participating in the competition. Yuling remembered this junior. She had a good relationship with her back then, and she was talented in mathematics. It was more than enough to get into the top 3 of the competition. Suddenly, Yuling laughed and suddenly swiped the screen, changing Song Yao's original opponent to Su Xianing. If Song Yao did not pass the first round, she had no hope of entering the top 10. Yuling's eyes were filled with uncontrollable joy and jealousy. She wanted to see if anyone could help Song Yao this time. After the competition started for a while, a familiar person backstage suddenly shouted, "Song Yao, where did you come from?" Chapter 626. Song Yao wiped her sweat and placed a plastic bag on the table. Her voice was clear and gentle. "I bought something. Are you sick? Why did you buy medicine?" The girl looked over and saw that there seemed to be a box of cold medicine. "It's not for me." Song Yao laughed. Hearing this, the girl finally noticed that there was something else in the plastic bag. "For a child? My brother liked to eat these snacks when he was young, but he didn't like them after junior high school." Hearing this, Song Yao could not help but smile. Yes, only children like them. The competition started very quickly. Although it was called an auditorium, the size of the building was more like a large event venue. There were high platforms on both sides and a large screen in front of them, making it easier to see the competition venue. About half an hour later, Song Yao glanced at the time and did not see Bei Yunj, so she could only put the things in the lounge first. Because she would be going on stage soon. What the F***CK? What the hell? Our opponents are Su Xianing and the rest? Song Yao's teammates' faces were almost ferocious. Let our country's teams kill each other? Neely University is heartless. This competition is randomly matched, another person said. At this moment, another boy sighed. But I heard from that blabbermouth in our class that our opponent is clearly the M country team. She did not expect to be deceived by fake news. Song Yao, we've dragged you down. If I had known, I wouldn't have teamed you up. The other three were very embarrassed. Song Yao was stunned for a moment before she smiled. It's okay. However, as soon as he said that, someone knocked on the door of their lounge. Song Yao's team, right? The bespectacled teacher asked. Song Yao was stunned. Yes. Congratulations on advancing. All the best in the next round. With that said, the teacher turned and left. Song Yao's entire team was speechless. What was this? They had won before the competition even started. Xiaofan, did you buy a place behind our backs? The two girls looked at the boy with a rich family background. Xiaofan was speechless. Was this something he could *King afford? He couldn't even buy it with his entire family's wealth, alright? Su Xianing, who was in the next group, was also confused. Why is that? Su Xianing pursed her lips. She had just seen that her opponent was Song Yao, so she had been looking forward to the moment when she would embarrass Song Yao. But how did she advance? What about Song Yao's team? There's an individual international player in the next group. According to the rules, the team that the individual international player is in will directly advance to the first 3 rounds. As soon as he finished speaking, the members of Su Xianing's group all sucked in a breath of cold air. Originally, they thought that hugging Su Xianing's thigh was already good enough. In the end, the neighboring group advanced without competing? An individual international contestant? Then why isn't our Xianing one? Some people were unwilling. Hearing this, the teacher just smiled and said, individual international contestants need to be recommended by internationally recognized scientific researchers. In our Yun University, only the former principal has this qualification. Who on earth is in the next group with such a big background? Everyone was instantly curious. I guess it's that guy. I heard that his family is very rich. Chapter 627. Hearing this, everyone fell silent. There were many scholars who looked relatively poor in the scientific research field. They really loved scientific research and did not pursue money. However, it was impossible to say that the scientific research field could not earn money. Everyone still remembered the 10 billion yuan project from a while ago. I really hope that we will still meet the next team in the next round, someone said softly. However, when Su Xianing heard this, her expression did not look too good. With a dark expression, she clenched her fists. Song Yao was really lucky. Not only could she participate in the competition for no reason, but she was also assigned to the same team as the international individual contestants. At the same time, Yu Ling, who was also looking forward to Su Xianing and Song Yao's competition, realized that something was wrong. It had been an hour and she still hadn't seen Song Yao and Su Xianing. What on earth was going on? Yu Ling regained her senses and immediately went backstage to check the information. She found that Song Yao and Su Xianing's team had advanced directly. Her expression changed, not knowing what was going on. Then, her voice was sweet. Teacher, there seem to be 2 teams here who didn't compete and advanced directly. Oh, you're talking about this. We have an international individual contestant in this competition. Her team will advance directly, and so will her opponent. The teacher said carelessly. Hearing this, Yu Ling almost couldn't maintain her expression. What kind of luck did Song Yao have? She actually encountered such a good thing? But this is also rare. It's rare to meet an international individual contestant. After all, an international individual contestant will advance to the 3rd round directly. If there are a few more international individual contestants, the competition won't be able to compete. Yu Ling suddenly had a bad feeling. She looked at the next round of competition. It was still Song Yao's team. But a few seconds later, Song Yao's team skipped over and advanced again. The international individual contestant was actually in Song Yao's team. Cool writing. Yu Ling's expression was extremely ugly. After these 3 rounds, Song Yao had completely picked up the ranking for nothing. Yu Ling took a deep breath, anger surging in her chest. She had never thought that Song Yao would be so lucky. About an hour later, Song Yao's team finally appeared. Coincidentally, they still bumped into Su Xianing's team in this round. However, Su Xianing's expression did not look too good. Their group had also passed 2 rounds of the competition before they could advance to the next round. But what about Song Yao? He had actually advanced so easily. Su Xianing bumped into Song Yao backstage and laughed coldly. You're really lucky. I don't know how you managed to cozy up to her. After that, Su Xianing left, while the people in Song Yao's team looked confused. What did he mean by Song Yao cozying up to him? They were clearly the ones who were riding on the golden coattails. This round of the competition began. Su Xianing's group appeared first. Because Su Xianing had an artist sister, she was considered half a public figure. Many people in the stadium were cheering for Su Xianing. There were even fans of Su Xianing's sister who came to hold banners. Su Xianing raised her chin and naturally accepted these gazes. At this moment, Yu Ling, who had finally waited for Song Yao's competition, was also staring fixedly at the calm Song Yao backstage. Didn't Song Yao feel inferior? But she had already become a pile of mud that anyone could step on. How could she still maintain her arrogance? Yu Ling unconsciously clenched her fists. Seeing that Song Yao was still calm and composed despite the awkwardness of no one supporting her team, she looked forward to seeing this elder young miss being trampled on even more ruthlessly. Suddenly. Chapter 628. Everyone looked up and saw an excessively beautiful girl with bright eyebrows lazily leaning against the railing. She raised her arm casually, revealing a small section of her cold and fair arm. She waved the bouquet of white roses in her hand at Song Yao casually, a smile on her lips. Bei Yunj did not speak and only looked at Song Yao with curved eyes. But in the next moment, Bei Yunj suddenly saw a big heart on the support sign from the corner of her eye. So, she narrowed her beautiful eyes and suddenly smirked. Her arm under her loose sweater bent and she made a heart for Song Yao. Si Chengyan was speechless. Master Pei's D*MN desire to win. She did not even want to lose. On the other hand, the fangirls below the stage who were pulling the banner for Su Xianing were inexplicably excited when they saw this scene. The girl's heart was about to fly. F***CK. What kind of scene is this? It's too cool. Is this really the friendship between two girls? Boo-hoo, she dotes on me so much. Why is my brain filled with dirty thoughts? Ah, that young lady in the stands is amazing. She's too good. She's killing me. All of a sudden, someone in the crowd woke up. Wait, no. This is Bei Yunj. Hearing this, many people who had watched their traveling became excited. On the stands, Si Chengyan could not help saying, Master Pei, it's not good to whistle in public. I don't want to either. Otherwise, Sister Yao won't be able to see me. Bei Yunj supported her head with one hand, her voice a little nasal. It sounded like she was feeling a little unwell. At this moment, Tich, who was in the front row, was silent for a long time before he poked Jasmine with his elbow. With teacher around, are you sure you can flirt with Song Yao? Jasmine was speechless. He did not expect to give Song Yao such a surprise. So, was he only worthy of being single? At this thought, Jasmine could not help but look at Song Yao. Seeing Song Yao's exquisite face flushed red, he felt that his biggest love rival might be his teacher. How could he catch up with her? Su Xianing glared at Bei Yunj in the distance and laughed coldly at Song Yao. Since you're so capable and can get a spot in the competition, why don't you get one for Bei Yunj too? Student Su, you should take care of yourself. Song Yao smiled elegantly and calmly, her voice not aggressive at all. I promised her that I would get first place since she's here. Listen to Yen. Su Xianing sneered. Although she said that she was dreaming, she began to be on guard. After all, there was an international player in Song Yao's team. But in the next moment, when all the contestants' information appeared on the big screen, everyone was shocked. The screen was filled with blue words, but only Song Yao's line was bright red. Contestant, Song Yao note, international individual player, F***CK. The international individual contestant is Song Yao. No wonder Song Yao could continue participating in the competition even after being chased away by the professor. The people in Su Xianing's group were discussing in low voices. Shut up! Su Xianing glanced at them coldly, then gritted her teeth and looked at Song Yao coldly. How was this possible? Why was Song Yao the international individual contestant? No. Impossible. Yu Ling, who was also unable to accept this fact, suddenly stood up from backstage. Her face was livid and her fingertips sank into the flesh of her palm. Chapter 629. Why was Song Yao so lucky? She was clearly no longer the elder young miss of the Song family. What right did she have to become the focus of everyone's attention? How could she have such connections? Yu Ling was even more jealous and her eyes could not hide the darkness. She did not want Song Yao to win against Su Xianing. As soon as this thought appeared, Yu Ling pursed her lips and suddenly touched the screen, trying to change Song Yao's team's topic. What are you doing? The sudden voice made Yu Ling shrink her hand subconsciously. She turned around and saw Tich's cold expression. I want to see this topic. Yu Ling's heart was beating very fast and she did not dare to look into Tich's eyes. Seeing Yu Ling's strange appearance, Tich only frowned and glanced at the screen. Song Yao and Su Xianing's topic appeared on it. Although Tich felt that this woman was strange, he did not have any evidence. He only said coldly, "If you want to see it, go and see it live. The notary is not for you to play." Yu Ling's expression changed. It was also her first time being reprimanded like this. She bit her lip. I got it. Tich glanced at the screen. After confirming that there was no problem, he looked up at Yu Ling. The meaning of this gaze was obvious. When do you plan to leave? Seeing that Tich was not soft-hearted to her at all, anger rose in Yu Ling's heart. She took her work pass and left. On the stage, Yu Ling even saw Bei Yunj on the stage and a mocking smile appeared on her lips unconsciously. Soon, she walked to Bei Yunj's side. I heard that Miss Pei is also a young lady from a wealthy family who led a wandering life. She only returned to the Qin family when she was 17 years old. Bei Yunj did not even look at Yu Ling, but Yu Ling still laughed. No wonder. Ordinary socialites and young ladies probably won't be with Song Yao. Is Miss Pei so close to Song Yao because of her past experience? Bei Yunj fiddled with the cigarette she had just snatched from Si Chengyan, but when she heard Yu Ling's voice, she immediately lost her interest. Miss Yu doesn't even let go of the time for a cigarette. Bei Yunj glanced at Song Yao, who was below the stage. Seeing that she was looking over, she subconsciously hid the cigarette behind her. She didn't want this girl, who looked gentle like water, to chase after her and preach to her. The higher Miss Pei promotes Song Yao, the worse someone will make her fall. Do you think she's still the eldest young Miss Song from back then? Yu Ling laughed sarcastically. Miss Pei should know that as long as Fu Yanbai thinks that I'm dead, Song Yao will be a murderer for the rest of her life. Bei Yunj looked up, but there was a frightening coldness in her eyes. Suddenly, she laughed silently. You like to play dead so much? That's right, only an idiot like Fu Yanbai would fancy you. From the corner of her eye, Bei Yunj glanced at Song Yao, who was frowning and looking at her uneasily. Then, she threw the cigarette she had hidden into the rubbish bin beside her openly in front of Song Yao. She smiled casually. Miss Yu, are you looking for Fu Yanbai? Let's go to the Public Security Bureau of District 1 of Yunqing City. It will be quite difficult for him to come out without 2 or 3 years. As soon as he finished speaking, Yu Ling's expression changed. What did you say? Fu Yanbai went to the police station? Yu Ling rarely watched the news and did not know about this at all. After regaining her senses, Yu Ling looked up and gritted her teeth. You did it. Was this Bei Yunj crazy? Wasn't she afraid of the Fu family's revenge? Chapter 630. Bei Yunj's clear voice was gentle. I just did something that a member of society should do. You. Yu Ling widened her eyes. She really never thought that someone would be able to get Fu Yanbai into the police station. Don't keep appearing in front of me. I'm not very friendly either. Bei Yunj smirked, her lazy eyes full of high spirits. She approached Yu Ling step by step, her warm palm suddenly holding her neck gently, but her eyes were cold and ruthless. Her smiling voice landed in Yu Ling's ears, but it sounded like a voice from hell. You won't die if you fall from here. But if you're unlucky, it's hard to say if you'll break a bone. Don't you think so? Bei Yunj, you. The back of Yu Ling's head turned cold. Before she could warn her, she was suddenly pressed by the hand on her neck and her waist hit the railing. This made Yu Ling's face pale and she did not dare to speak anymore. I'm just joking with Miss Yu. Don't be afraid. Bei Yunj suddenly retracted her hand, her eyes brightening. She slowly took out a tissue and wiped her hands. However, Miss Yu, you heard that I returned to the Qin family from outside. How could you not know that I was in a mental hospital before? Hearing this, Yu Ling's scalp suddenly turned numb as she remembered this. Bei Yunj did have records of being hospitalized in a mental hospital. Even if Bei Yunj really pushed her down, the Qin family could use this to ensure that Bei Yunj would be safe. After all, she heard that the fake young lady from before had been pushed down the stairs by Bei Yunj more than once. Thinking of this, Yu Ling immediately felt a chill run down her spine. She almost ran away from the high platform. At the same time, the competition was continuing. Bei Yunj turned around and walked downstairs herself. There was a huge disparity in strength in the competition on stage. It was almost a one-sided suppression by Su Xianing's team. Bei Yunj glanced at the results on the screen calmly. 2-7. Su Xianing's team was 7 and Song Yao's team could not catch up. However, at this time, Song Yao had not appeared at all. Her teammates were answering the questions. Teacher? Jasmine was originally watching from the sidelines, but when he saw Bei Yunj coming down from the high platform, he immediately went to Bei Yunj's side and shouted in a low voice. Okay, don't be noisy. Bei Yunj responded faintly. She pulled up her hoodie and pursed her red lips. He looked unapproachable. However, Jasmine, who was already familiar with Bei Yunj, also noticed that something was wrong. Teacher, are you nervous? A moment later, Bei Yunj looked at him indifferently. Immediately, Jasmine froze, knowing that he had asked something he shouldn't have. We will win. Don't worry. Jasmine immediately handed Bei Yunj a bottle of ice water and fawned over her. On the stage, Song Yao had noticed Bei Yunj at some point in time. She stared at Bei Yunj, who had just opened the ice cap. Bei Yunj paused. A moment later, Bei Yunj stuffed it to Jasmine and pulled her hat lower, deliberately not watching Song Yao's competition. Song Yao was speechless. If this fellow didn't do it on purpose, she would take her surname. At this moment, Jasmine also felt his teacher's undisguised vengeance. It turned out that his teacher also had the childishness of her age. A few minutes later, Jasmine leaned closer and reminded her kindly, "Shake her and she's about to catch up." Chapter 631. Jasmine did not see that Bei Yunj had been pinching her loose sleeve with her left hand. Not only Su Xianing, even Professor Wei's face turned green. He had carefully paved the path for Su Xianing, but in the end, it was suppressed by a student from the ordinary class not long ago. Professor Wei's expression was ugly. At the thought of Song Yao's recommendation, he could not help but take a deep breath. Professor Wei, what's wrong? Suddenly, a colleague who saw Professor Wei leave shouted. However, Professor Wei did not seem to hear him and left without looking back. Soon, in the first real competition, Song Yao successfully advanced. In the next few rounds, Song Yao also won beautifully. However, when she met Chang Zihuai in the last round of the competition, she started to feel powerless. Chang Zihuai was indeed very talented in mathematics. In addition, the Qingchong Computing Center had been nurturing Chang Zihuai carefully, so his strength had long surpassed his peers. Student Song, I'm sorry. I can't give in to you in this competition. Chang Zihuai's face was cold and arrogant, but he was polite to the girls, causing all the girls present to have a good impression of him. You don't have to be polite, Student Cheng. After all, we're all aiming for first place. Song Yao's lips were still curved, but her simple words made everyone present feel inexplicably hot-blooded. Such a gentle young lady turned out to be so arrogant. There was too much of a contrast. A dark look flashed past Chang Zihuai's eyes. At the same time, he glanced at Bei Yunj below the stage and revealed a trace of mockery. Bei Yunj's friend does have a bit of Bei Yunj's temper. The team member beside Song Yao looked at Chang Zihuai opposite her. He seemed to have a grudge against Song Yao's friend and felt even more doomed. This time, it was so difficult to catch up with the score. They probably couldn't make it. The notification light on the screen turned from green to red. Wen Ting Pavilion. The original medium difficulty questions had been changed to high difficulty questions. The type of questions had not appeared much in the past few years. The professors from all over the world were speechless. Who the F***ck was so stupid to use the newly deciphered formula in the competition? Which high school student would be so bored as to read the questions and thesis? F***ck. Who is this long video for? Sorry to disturb you. I felt like I was reading a heavenly book just now. What has appeared now? Even though the people present did not understand the questions in front of them, the feeling of taking up almost half of the screen made their scalps tingle. Many people were already afraid of mathematics. When they saw this scene, they were so immersed that they almost suffocated. Was this a problem that a human should solve? Other than the professors, only Jasmine and Titch were able to answer their teacher's questions with ease. After all, every time Bei Yunj released something, they would be the first to pay attention to it. Their teachers had always wanted their students to develop in an all-round way. On the field, almost all the contestants wanted to kneel before these two questions. Both Song Yao and Cheng Zihuai were silent. It was as if the competition had stopped. However, at this moment, only Song Yao suddenly remembered that when Bei Yunj was bored the last time, he had pressed her to explain this topic for the entire afternoon. Song Yao barely understood. After all, the difficulty of this question was not within her tolerance range. Chapter 632. Jasmine was speechless. If it was his teacher's handiwork, then wouldn't it be completely ruined? Fortunately, the questions on the left and right were all new types and were not more difficult than Song Yao's. Fortunately, it's my question. Bei Yunj had taken off her hat at some point in time and laughed leisurely. Jasmine turned to look at Bei Yunj, speechless. Did you misunderstand your question? What did he mean by fortunately? It was his question. Song Yao will definitely win. Bei Yunj opened a bottle of iced cola with one hand and drank a few mouthfuls after saying that lazily. Jasmine was speechless. Where did his confidence come from? If his teacher wasn't Bei Yunj, he might not have been able to solve this question immediately. Then, just as Jasmine was about to say something, he suddenly heard a voice behind him. That young lady is answering. Isn't she too amazing? This question feels like a heavenly book. Jasmine turned around instinctively and saw the gentle-looking girl swiping her slender fingers across the screen. On the big screen, her answer process was gradually shown. Jasmine was stunned for a long time before he turned back to look at Bei Yunj. Teacher Yu. I've taught her the basic questions, Bei Yunj said slowly. Jasmine was speechless. Of all the people present, only she could classify this question as a basic question. At this moment, Cheng Zihuai, who was beside her, did not know how to answer the question. When he turned around and saw Song Yao, who was focused on answering the question, his expression turned even uglier. Would a student from an ordinary class really know how to solve such questions? After about 20 minutes, Song Yao finally finished writing all the questions. After checking, she submitted the answers. Soon, the original score of 10-13 immediately became 18-13. With this question, he really overtook the car at the bend. Damn, isn't this young lady too fierce? It's my first time seeing a beautiful young lady who can do math questions so beautifully. The audience exclaimed and their eyes were focused on the calm Song Yao on stage. At this moment, Yu Ling's gaze was sinister as she bit her lower lip. Suddenly, Yu Ling, you didn't die? When Su Xianing saw Yu Ling, she was stunned for a moment before she flew into a rage out of humiliation. Yu Ling didn't die. Then why didn't Yu Ling come back in these 2 to 3 years? The next moment, Su Xianing noticed that Yu Ling was still wearing Neely University's uniform. She sneered. So he went to hide from Neely. Su Xianing said sarcastically, do you know about the Song family's bankruptcy? When Yu Ling was asked this question, her palms immediately became drenched in sweat. A dark look flashed across her eyes. She quickly blurted out the words that she had thought of earlier. Xianing, I didn't mean to not come back. I didn't dare to come back. Why wouldn't he dare to come back? President Fu ruined the Song family because of you. Why don't you dare to come back? Su Xianing also hated Song Yao, but she knew very well that Yu Ling also had a grudge against Song Yao. Did you see that? She's the one who recommended you. A glint flashed across Yu Ling's eyes as she spoke slowly. What do you mean? Su Xianing was already in a bad mood and her eyebrows were even colder now. Who recommended her? Yu Ling asked. Ah! Su Xianing frowned and answered impatiently. Chapter 633. Just now, who was the first to draw up the formula that Song Yao got right? Yu Ling's words stunned Su Xianing. It was, but very quickly Su Xianing said coldly, that's impossible. People in the scientific research field cherish their reputation the most. Song Yao was not anyone, so how could she take this risk for Song Yao? I heard from the mathematics department professor in our school that they have been trying to contact each other recently. Coincidentally, when Song Yao was answering the question appeared. And it happened to be Song Yao's recommendation. Don't you think it's strange? Yu Ling observed Su Xianing's expression and asked. Yu Ling, you've already harmed Song Yao enough. Su Xianing furrowed her eyebrows. She hated Song Yao and couldn't get used to seeing her high and mighty appearance. However, she would never destroy Song Yao's family. This was too ruthless. But I didn't do this, Yu Ling retorted. Yu Ling retorted. Then, she bit her lip, her eyes filled with stubbornness. Do you think I told you because I can't stand Song Yao? I just don't want you to be treated unfairly because someone else took a shortcut. But I lost to her. Yes, I lost to her. Unexpectedly at this moment, Su Xianing clenched her fists but was unusually calm. She had her pride. She really loved mathematics and would not use such a despicable method to slander her opponent. Yu Ling, I used to hate those teachers who said that girls were not as good as boys in mathematics. I also hated those students who were usually mischievous and suddenly learned well and the teachers praised them for being smart. In this world, I admire the strong and respect those with perseverance. I hate Song Yao because she's high and mighty. Back then, she didn't like my goodwill, so I targeted her. Su Xianing laughed. I like to go against her, but it doesn't mean that I want her to live a life worse than death. Yu Ling's eyes flashed and her expression was a little ugly. She had never thought that the person she used to use as a tool would say such words. Put away your thoughts too. She's not to be trifled with. Do you think she's Bei Yunj beside Song Yao? She doesn't even write her name in her exercise book. She's just a slacker? Su Xianing laughed and her tone was cold. Since you're back, I've let Song Yao down for deliberately targeting her previously. I can't apologize. I'll avoid her in the future. On the stage, Yu Ling was left trembling and her pretty face was slightly distorted. These people were all equally lofty and hypocritical. They were all equally disgusting. In the final competition, Cheng Zihuai's team had more correct answers than Song Yao. However, because of the extra points, Song Yao was one question ahead. So Song Yao won this competition by a narrow margin. The venue was filled the venue. Pei Yunj also carried the flowers backstage and waited for Song Yao. Out of the corner of his eye, he happened to see Su Xianing's embarrassed expression. Su Xianing's expression was ferocious for a moment before she walked towards Pei Yunj aggressively and threw a book that looked like it was about to be torn apart in front of Pei Yunj. Trash, she's Joe to read. You use asterisk. Su Xianing was so angry that her face almost distorted and flushed red. Give my book to Song Yao. This was Su Xianing's 16th birthday present. Su Xianing's father was a slightly famous mathematician. For his daughter, he had written this book for more than half a year. There was only one book. She doesn't need it. Bei Yunj glanced at it and said slowly. Chapter 634. Hearing this, Su Xianing laughed even more. Her tone was sarcastic and her eyes were arrogant. Do you think Song Yao is like you? She doesn't even write her name in the exercise book. Bei Yunj raised his eyebrows and glanced at her, still looking casual. I heard that you seem to be in Hengda and your results are not bad. Su Xianing looked like she was not afraid of being beaten up and smiled coldly, but in fact, she left quickly as she said those harsh words, afraid that Bei Yunj would catch up to her. If I see you in Yun University in the future, I'll report you too. You're shameless to let someone do your homework for you. Bei Yunj was speechless. All along, Bei Yunj did not have a good impression of this student, Su Xianing. She knew how to scheme and deliberately target Song Yao. She did not look very smart. These 3 points were all in line with the type of person Bei Yunj usually wanted to teach her a lesson. But today, this person was quite strange. Bei Yunj turned around and lifted his eyelids. He reached out and casually flipped through a few pages of the book that Su Xianing did not take away. Never meet at the end. Bei Yunj's slender fingers slid down gently and a familiar name appeared. Bei Yunj was speechless. Yunj? Song Yao's voice suddenly came from the door, making Bei Yunj's fingers tremble slightly. She looked casual and quickly moved her hand away. Is this yours? Song Yao asked instinctively. Bei Yunj said, Su Xianing gave it to you. Song Yao was stunned for a moment and pursed her lips. After a long time, she was finally willing to reach out to flip through this book that was not considered new. I know this book. I think her father gave it to her as a birthday present. Song Yao's pleasant voice was still calm. Why is she suddenly being nice to me? Is it because she likes it? However, after thinking about it, something did not seem right. Song Yao also knew how much Su Xianing loved this book. Bei Yunji's eyebrows moved, as if she suddenly understood the meaning of Su Xianing's words. She looked down and guessed slowly, I don't think so. Is she apologizing to you? He was even hiding from Song Yao and did not dare to meet her. He looked as if he had a guilty conscience. Song Yao was silent for a long time and did not mention this topic again. Oh, all right. Then, Song Yao suddenly took out a box of cold medicine from the side. She tore open one of the packets and found a clean disposable paper cup to pour it in. Wait for me here. I'll get you a cup of hot water. With that said, Song Yao took the cup carefully and hurried to get the hot water. Bei Yunj? ? Not long after. Song Yao handed the cold medicine to Bei Yunj. She pursed her lips and suppressed the smile on her lips. I poured less water, so you can finish it in one go. Bei Yunj was silent for a while. Have you ever thought that this will be even more painful? Song Yao was speechless. In the end, Bei Yunj still frowned. Her beautiful face was full of rejection, and she quickly finished the medicine. Song Yao hurriedly handed the other cup of warm water to Bei Yunj. Seeing that Bei Yunj was still frowning impatiently after drinking it, Song Yao's lips curved unconsciously. Soon, the girl who saw Song Yao buy a bag of snacks saw Song Yao walk out of the lounge with a beautiful and lazy girl beside her. She was chewing on the candy lazily, holding the snack she had gotten with one hand and putting the other in her pocket as she walked calmly. The girl was speechless. It turned out that there were really adults who liked such overly sweet snacks. Chapter 635. Because Song Yao had gotten first place in this competition, the mathematics department of Yun University was already giving Song Yao an olive branch. After all, Song Yao had almost won all the difficult questions at the back. How could Yun University be willing to let go of such a talent? On the other hand, Cheng Zihuai's expression was extremely ugly. After being reprimanded by Hong Chongzhen, he hated this person who had never shown her face but had gone against him time and time again. When they were choosing students back then, she did not like him and chose Jian Shi. And in this competition, he was defeated by Song Yao, who had personally recommended him. If she wasn't purposely going against him, then it meant that he really didn't get along with her. At the Computing Institute, after Bei Yunj returned, she was still working on the second project she had prepared. However, because the second project involved a field that Bei Yunj had not paid much attention to in the past, the progress was a little slow. In the afternoon, Bei Yunj took out a large box of information from the Computing Institute's inventory. She placed them all on the ground and flipped through them one by one. At this moment, Nance pushed open the door and entered. His eyelids twitched. Yunj, what are you doing? Bei Yunj did not even look up. I'm checking some information. Although Bei Yunj did not agree to be Nance's student, after spending some time together, Bei Yunj and Nance's relationship was not bad. Let me take a look. Nance had just approached when he saw Bei Yunj flipping through the books at a frightening speed. You are like this when you read books? With that said, Bei Yunj flipped the page again and answered indifferently. In this aspect, Bei Yunj was indeed enviable. She could almost read 10 lines at a glance and remember everything she saw. She had an amazing memory. Seeing that Nance was silent for a long time, Bei Yunj hesitated for a moment before saying slowly, most of the content in these books is actually quite repetitive, so it looks quite simple. This explanation still made Nance feel complicated. No wonder she could achieve such an achievement at such a young age. Let me see how far your project has progressed. Nance walked to Bei Yunj's side. Bei Yunj did not mind Nance coming to take a look. Instead, she gave him a simple introduction to this project. Soon, Nance proposed several concepts that Bei Yunj did not know much about and taught Bei Yunj how to improve it. After talking for about half an hour, Bei Yunj felt that this project was much easier. She looked up at Nancy. Are you very knowledgeable in this area? Not bad. Nance nodded his head and said Bei Yunj, Bei Yunj, Bei Yunj's, Bei Yunj, and Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj's side, Bei Yunj ge, Bei Yunj's, Bei Yunj. Nancy struck while the iron was hot. Why don't you reconsider? Bei Yunj, Bei Bei Bei. Pei Yunj had also heard from Zhong Shanglin that Nance wanted to take her in as a student without knowing who she was. I'm already so old, and I always hope that someone can inherit my legacy. Of course, I chose you because from the beginning, this old man prefers girls like you who are full of evil tricks. After a short silence, Pei Yunj smirked and looked at Nance with a smile. Can I think about it? Hearing this, Nancy's entire body stiffened, and she began to get excited again. Chapter 636. Okay, think about it carefully. We must consider it carefully. Nancy was almost in tears. Was it easy for him to stay in the computing institute for so long? Zhong Shanglin almost chased him away with a broom. Okay. Bei Yunj nodded and sat down in front of the computer again. At this moment, Nancy happily leaned over. Is there anything you don't understand? No. Bei Yunj's simple sentence made Nancy completely quiet down. Nancy. Some time ago, he secretly asked Zhong Shanglin about the research topic of Bei Yunj's project. After that, he also searched for information day and night, just to make his presence felt in front of Bei Yunj. Okay. After leaving, Nancy began to wonder if his standards were not good enough. Therefore, when Zhong Shanglin returned, he found that Nancy had changed into clean clothes and was wearing a white coat, doing experiments seriously. In the end, he had put in so much at once, but Bei Yunj could remember all of it? The smile on Nancy's face was a little stiff. He felt that with Bei Yunj's speed of understanding, he would finish his capital very soon. Then I'll go out first. Take your time. I've been flipping through books for 2 to 3 weeks just to let Gur feel that I'm knowledgeable and qualified to be her teacher. Nancy looked up and smiled. But now I realize that her ability to accept things is too strong. If I don't continue to do research, even if she acknowledges me as her teacher, I'll have to be fired in less than half a year. Zhong Shanglin. Nancy, what's wrong with you? Zhong Shanglin could not help but ask. Gur just agreed to consider me as her teacher. Zhong Shanglin was puzzled. Isn't that good? You've been flipping through books for 2 to 3 weeks for Gur's project. Isn't it just to trick Gur into becoming your disciple? Back then, Nancy was also an existence that was difficult to surpass in the computing field. Moreover, Nancy did have many similarities with Bei Yunj. Nancy had won many awards in the past. Not only in the computer field, but she had also won many awards in medicine and physics. Therefore, Zhong Shanglin actually agreed that Nancy should be Bei Yunj's teacher. In this way, the road to Bei Yunj would be easier in the future. Why bother? He was already so old, but in order to take in a disciple, he was torturing himself like this. However, seeing that Nancy was finally motivated to continue her research, Zhong Shanglin was quite happy. This was to prevent any unforeseen events from happening. However, since Bei Yunj's identity was a secret, Zhong Shanglin still advised Nancy not to reveal it at this time. In the end, the two of them decided to hold the apprenticeship banquet after the college entrance exam. After all, Bei Yunj was still too young. Once her identity was made public, it would be easy for her to cause a dispute. But if Nancy was there, who would dare to have any ideas about Bei Yunj? A few days later, Bei Yunj agreed to acknowledge Nancy as her teacher. When Nancy heard that Bei Yunj had agreed personally, he almost wanted to drag her to hold the apprenticeship banquet on the spot. However, at this moment, Nancy was already grinning from ear to ear. A few minutes later, he sent a message to all his old friends, saying that he had found a very outstanding successor. However, not long after, the big shots in the scientific research field who were annoyed by his message mercilessly blocked Nancy. So what if he found an heir? Could his heir go to heaven? Chapter 637. The next day. Bei Yunj's second project had almost been made public in the industry, causing a commotion. As for the sale of patents, it had always been Director He of the Computing Institute who handled it. Bei Yunj did not pay much attention to it. What do you think about our patent fee? Director He's face was flushed red at the thought of selling patents to Bei Yunj. Usually, when he went out for business, people would only pay attention to the patents in the institute. Those who bought the patents were all bosses who paid for them and did not dare to offend them. But now, the one selling the patent rights was the one from the 10 billion project back then. At this moment, it was all the big companies calling to get close to him. Double it. Bei Yunj did not hesitate. Director He's smile stiffened. Wasn't this a little too ruthless? Would that group of capitalists agree? Actually, Delaney has already mentioned this to me, Bei Yunj said casually. When her second project had just started, Delaney had already come over and offered to pay more for the patent rights. He agreed. Director He was a little hesitant. Bei Yunj hummed in response. Although the depreciation of Country R's currency was low, it was normal for Country R to be willing to pay a high price for the patent rights. But wasn't it too ruthless to double it? Delaney was also a cunning businessman. How could he agree to double the fee so readily? Guher, how did you get Delaney to agree to this fee? Bei Yunj's eyebrows twitched when she heard this. She looked up at him again. He didn't want it, so I bought it for someone else. Director He was speechless. Bei Yunj smiled playfully. They were willing to buy my second project because the first patent I sold to Delaney made the Delaney Group's market value soar. They were not doing charity, and neither was Bei Yunj. Now that the computing industry was developing rapidly, there were many markets that could be exploited. They had seen how much Delaney had received as the first person to eat crabs. How could the others not be tempted? Even if Bei Yunj wanted a sky-high patent fee, in their eyes, it was worth a gamble. All right. Director He nodded and looked at the current buyers that he had selected. He casually said, if that's the case, there should be a lot of foreign companies coming to buy the right to use it. As for China, it's probably the Hua Corporation and... Hua Corporation. Bei Yunj suddenly interrupted him. Director He nodded. The Hua Corporation's Scientific Research Department has expressed their desire to buy the patent rights a long time ago. Moreover, with the Hua Corporation's assets, they can afford your offer the most. Faced with Bei Yunj's sky-high patent fees, other medium-sized and large companies would probably be out of business after they bought the patent. At this moment, Dean he added, but it doesn't matter. We still have Delaney. Wait. Whatever the Hua Corporation wants, I can give it to them. Bei Yunj chuckled. His seductive eyes were lazy and carried a lazy smile. Dean he? ? 2 days later. Hua Corporation. Bei Yunj had just arrived when he saw a hot foreign beauty standing beside the man in the office. Bei Yunj narrowed his beautiful eyes. He leaned against the door and watched the two of them chat calmly. Not long after Hua Shidu and Bei Yunj finished chatting, he glanced around and saw the unhappy young lady at the door. Chapter 638. Hua Shidu's gaze landed on her unwaveringly. The man's ink-like eyes were noble. He said in amusement, "Why are you in a daze? Are you possessed?" As soon as he finished speaking, the blonde foreign beauty beside her also turned her head and saw the girl in front of her clearly. The girl's eyes were bright and languid. She had black hair and red lips. She was excessively beautiful and very recognizable. She was wearing a simple white shirt and a slim waist. Her slender and straight legs were so fair that they dazzled people. A hint of surprise flashed across the foreign beauty's eyes. Then, she saw that the girl was very bold and sat on the armrest of the sofa beside the man. Bei Yunj licked her lips. Her eyes were still clear. She smiled and leaned closer to the man, as if she was deliberately tickling his heart. "I'm not possessed. I just want to try bumping into your chest." Hua Shidu's originally lazy and carefree posture paused. His eyes darkened and even the light gradually disappeared. Soon, the slender and well-defined hand on the document casually closed the document. Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj looked up and saw Hua Shidu looking at her with a faint smile. "Have I spoiled you too much usually?" Originally, he thought that the young lady had not taken the college entrance examination yet. For the sake of the young lady, he could tolerate it for a while more. But now, this young lady really thought that his tolerance was so good. She was teasing him without any restraint. At this moment, Bei Yunj also felt an inexplicable dangerous atmosphere. In the next moment, she heard the foreign beauty beside her smile tactfully. "Mr. Hua, continue with your work. See you at the meeting." "Okay," the man replied indifferently. Before the foreign beauty left, she even closed the door kindly. Sure, this was very dangerous. 52 Literature. Bei Yunj looked up and did not dare to look at Hua Shidu for some reason. "Brother, are you angry?" Hearing this, the man did not say anything. Bei Yunj took his attitude as tacit agreement and felt frustrated for no reason. So, it was not that Hua Shidu did not like women, but that he liked the looks of foreign women? Thinking of this, Bei Yunj glanced at him and said, "Got it. In the future." The next moment, Bei Yunj stood up from the sofa, but her wrist was suddenly grabbed. Before she could react, a strong arm suddenly wrapped around her waist, and she fell directly into the man's arms. "Bei Yunj, do you know what you're doing?" Hua Shidu's deep voice suddenly sounded in her ears. "What do these mean to me?" Bei Yunj's slender waist was held, and she could not move. This was the first time she had heard the man say it so directly. Her heart felt as if it had been scolded. The girl's ears turned red, and she was unconsciously nervous. Seeing that Bei Yunj was unable to speak for a long time for the first time, the corners of the man's upturned eyes were seductive, and he returned to his usual lazy and carefree self. His low and hoarse laughter landed beside her ear, as if he was deliberately teasing her eardrums. His warm and pleasant breath pressed against her back, making it impossible for her to avoid it. His voice was low and magnetic. "Yun, answer me. Do you want me?" Hearing this, Bei Yunj's heart seemed to have been poked by something. Her heart was beating wildly, and she was panicking. However, at this moment, the man's low and hoarse laughter still carried his unique and cold aura, making her feel annoyed and inexplicably at ease. Chapter 639. Bei Yunj's heart tightened and she instinctively hooked her arms around the man's neck. She looked up and saw the man's smooth and well-defined jawline. It was inexplicably seductive. It made Bei Yunj feel an indescribable impulse. After coming back to her senses, Bei Yunj felt the man's unconcealed gaze and realized what she had been thinking about just now. Her heart beat faster for some reason. After Hua Shidu placed her on the desk, she wanted to leave the desk quickly. "I haven't asked you to come down yet." As the man finished speaking, Bei Yunj was held by the waist by the man again. He lifted her gently and she sat back down. Bei Yunj. Was this a tyrant's dictatorship? Hua Shidu saw that the young lady was unhappy and laughed softly. He stretched out his hand casually and helped the young lady tidy her black hair. "You don't have to answer that question now." The man's tone was casual, but the magnetic voice that fell in her ears almost burned her heart. "But Yun has to know that brother is waiting for you." He was really unwilling to hand this child over to someone else. 10 minutes later. The heat on Bei Yunj's face faded. She sat in front of the CEO's desk and looked like she was seriously writing a mock paper. However, not long after, Bei Yunj came back to her senses and saw a familiar name written in the blank space of her poem. Hua Shidu. Bei Yunj. She was really possessed. Bei Yunj instinctively looked up at Hua Shidu and immediately crossed out the 3 words she had just written. Not long after, Sang-Soo walked in from the door and saw his tall and straight master do. He could only sit on the sofa and work on his laptop. He turned around and saw that the person beside the CEO's desk was Bei Yunj. She was lazily writing questions with a pen in one hand and supporting her chin with the other. She looked like she was daydreaming. Sang-Soo. He doted on Miss Pei too much. Master Du was really more attentive than the Qin family's parents. However, only Miss Pei could make Master Du sit on the sofa and work. "Master Du, this is the information for the meeting. Take a look." Sang-Soo came back to his senses and immediately handed the information to Hua Shidu. After that, when Hua Shidu was flipping through the information, Sang-Soo turned around and saw Bei Yunj holding her cheek with one hand and admiring Hua Shidu's side profile without restraint. He was not in the mood to do the questions at all. Sang-Soo. Should he abhor evil and report Miss Pei? Yun right well. Suddenly, the man's low and magnetic voice sounded. Only then did Bei Yunj lower her head and continue to answer the questions. It had to be said. As long as Hua Shidu was in her line of sight, it would be difficult for her to concentrate on her work. She could not help but take a few more glances at him. Miss Pei's results seemed to have improved a lot. We should congratulate you. We should congratulate you. Sang-Soo tried to find a topic to ease the atmosphere. However, after Bei Yunj thanked him, she didn't say anything else. The atmosphere remained cold and awkward. That's enough. Let Morden take care of the other points. After flipping through it, Hua Shidu casually threw the things on the coffee table. Okay, Director He from the Computing Institute will be coming over today to talk about the patent rights of DX technology. Should we let Mr. Morden come along? Sang-Soo asked. Yes, Hua Shidu replied. At this moment, Bei Yunji's long eyelashes fluttered and she glanced at them. Director, he is coming today. Chapter 640. Okay. Bei Yunji responded. She was quite surprised. Her second project was still in the research and development stage. Were these people so fast? Just as Bei Yunji was thinking about whether she should send a message to Director He, Sang Yu walked in quickly from the door. Master Du, Miss Pei. Sang Yu didn't seem to be shocked by Bei Yunji sitting at the CEO's desk. However, her gaze lingered between Hua Shidu and Bei Yunji, and there was an inexplicable feeling of sparks flying. She looked like a frontline personnel who were in love with a couple. After Sang Yu came back to her senses, she revealed a professional smile. Master Du, Mr. Morden has also arrived at our company's conference hall. Director He of the Computing Institute will arrive in 5 minutes. Okay. Hua Shidu stood up and slowly buttoned his sleeves. He looked refined and noble, and his abstinence made one's legs go weak. Inform everyone that the meeting will start in 10 minutes. Understood. Sang Su nodded. Hua Shidu turned around and walked to Bei Yunji's side. He gently pinched her chin, and the corners of his thin red lips curled up. He rubbed the corner of her lips with his warm fingers as if nothing had happened. For some reason, there was an ambiguous feeling that made one blush and their hearts race. Stay here obediently. Don't torture me. You can eat whatever you want tonight. Bei Yunji. Seeing Hua Shidu walk out of the office, Sang Yu leaned closer to Bei Yunji and asked softly, Does Miss Pei like it? Bei Yunji's eyes flashed as she looked at Sang Yu. What? Today's meeting is mainly about the DX technology. He might come too. If Miss Pei likes it, we can wait at the rest area along the corridor later. Sang Yu remembered that Bei Yunji had gone to the Computing Institute before. Now, most of the people who knew about the Computing Institute were there because of this. Some time ago, this person had shocked the entire academic circle. Bei Yunji thought of something and suddenly smiled. Then let's go now. As soon as she finished speaking. Before Sang Yu could react, Bei Yunji had already stood up and walked out. Miss, what if Master Du finds out? Sang Yu's eyelids twitched, and she quickly pulled Bei Yunji back. He won't be angry even if he knows. Bei Yunji let Sang Yu hold her hand, but she didn't stop walking. Sang Yu. It's not that I won't be angry, but I won't be angry with you. However, her fate was uncertain. He knows that you can't control me. Bei Yunji smiled. Sang Yu. That's true. She was not as capable as Master Du when it came to people that even Master Du could not control. Soon. Sang Yu and Bei Yunji had just sat down when they saw 2 people walk in. Sang Yu accidentally saw it and her eyes lit up. She subconsciously held Bei Yunji's hand tightly. Bei Yunji felt a sharp pain in her arm. After Sang Yu regained her senses, she realized what she had just done and hurriedly said, Miss, I'm sorry, I didn't do it on purpose, she continued. That man just now was too good-looking. He's like a refined scum. Bei Yunji looked up and noticed the tall Si Chengyan in a black trench coat. Si Chengyan was indeed good-looking. Director, Brother Yan. Bei Yunji called out. At this moment, Si Chengyan and Director He turned around and saw Bei Yunji in the resting area. Why are you here? Si Chengyan asked instinctively. However, Director He immediately recalled what Bei Yunji had said last time. Chapter 641. I can give the Hua Corporation whatever they want. Dean He was speechless. So she was already related to the Hua Corporation. Suddenly, Sang Yu asked, Are you? Si Chengyan turned around and saw Sang Yu beside Bei Yunji. She was looking at him with a red face and sparkling eyes. She was quite cute. I'm not. Si Chengyan smiled and looked at the silent Bei Yunji beside him. He said meaningfully, However, you should know who I am in the future. When Sang Yu heard this, she was stunned. Why would she know? The next moment, Sang Yu turned to look at Bei Yunji. Miss Pei, how do you know Dean He and this gentleman? I happened to meet him previously. Bei Yunji glanced at Dean He and then at Si Chengyan. This is a professor from the computing department of Yun University. I attended a special class at Yun University before. Si Chengyan couldn't help but look at Bei Yunji. She was really a fox. What she said was true. But did they know each other at Yun University? I see. Miss is really amazing. You actually attended a special class at Yun University. Sang Yu praised. Bei Yunj replied casually, yes, I was chased out because I asked my classmates to copy my homework. Sang Yu was speechless. For a moment, Sang Yu did not know how to answer. Si Chengyan pursed his lips. This was not the first time he had seen Bei Yunj bully someone like this. We're going to a meeting. Do you want to go? Si Chengyan asked casually. Dean He, who was beside him, secretly poked him with his elbow. What was going on? 186 Chinese website. No one knew who Bei Yunj was. What if someone noticed where she was going? However, it was obvious that Dean He's worry was unnecessary. Can I? After Bei Yunj asked, she looked at Sang Yu. Her beautiful eyes were exceptionally clear, making it impossible to reject her. Sang Yu said, shall I ask Master Du? Soon. When Sang Yu brought the three of them to the conference hall, Sang Yu saw that the long table in the conference hall was filled with people. Her eyelids twitched. She braced herself and said, Master Du, Miss Pei. Brother, can I listen in on your meeting? Bei Yunj interrupted Sang Yu, which made Sang Yu completely relieved. When Hua Shidu heard this, he raised his eyes and casually glanced at Bei Yunj. Then, just as everyone lowered their heads, thinking that their boss would definitely refuse, suddenly, the man's low and magnetic voice sounded nonchalantly. Does anyone else mind? Everyone. Since when did their president walk into a romantic drama? What do you mean by do other people mind? Do you remember that you even rejected office romances? One of the older vice presidents frowned. We have a distinguished guest here. This is not appropriate. The Computing Institute is a prestigious research institute in the academic circle. President Hua, shouldn't we respect Director He and Professor Si a little? Suddenly, Bei Yunj looked at Director He and Si Chengyan. Director, do you mind? Dean He immediately forced a smile. How could this be? This project was all hers. How would he dare to mind? Si Chengyan lied without blushing. This young lady might become one of us in the future. Why would we mind? Everyone. What did this mean? According to their information just now, this good-looking man was a core member of the Computing Institute and a professor at Yun University. Chapter 642. On the other hand, the recruitment conditions of the Computing Institute were famous for being picky in the industry. Why would he take a fancy to an ordinary girl? However, when everyone turned around and saw Bei Yunj's face clearly, a trace of surprise flashed past their eyes. Was Master Du's sister that good-looking? However, most people still could not believe that this girl was Master Du's biological sister. They had a feeling that this girl and their Master Du were a couple for some reason. Ahem, this conversation doesn't involve any secrets. Mr. Morden, what do you think? Dean He turned around and asked the CEO who had come all the way from overseas. I have no objections. Morden shrugged and said with a smile. He was well aware of the Hua Corporation's power and influence. As for the Computing Institute, he still did not know if he would give them the DX project. After all, he heard that Delaney was also competing for the second project. Seeing that no one had any objections, the vice president's expression was ugly, but he did not say anything else. Bei Yunj naturally moved a chair and sat beside Hua Shidu. At this moment, the rest of the people finally dared to size up Bei Yunj. Many people's hearts were in turmoil. Wasn't this girl too good-looking? Sitting beside their president, there was really a sense of déjà vu. Seeing that he was there, Bei Yunj did not go to Hua Shidu's side. At this moment, the man's aloof peach blossom eyes curled into a nonchalant arc as he leisurely glanced at her. Then, in the conference room, the man's low and lazy voice drifted into everyone's ears with an inexplicable hint of a smile. I'm sorry, everyone. I brought a family member this time. With that said, the hearts of the female staff present thumped wildly and they almost couldn't keep their expressions straight. These words were too cool. How could their unreasonable president Hua say it himself? Hua Shidu glanced at her carelessly before his thin lips suddenly curled up. I'll try my best to arrange for my family member next time. Bei Yunj was speechless. At this moment, Dean He was in a completely different mood from everyone. It turned out that Yunj had such a relationship with the rumored youngest president of the Hua Corporation. No wonder she was so biased towards the Hua Corporation. His attitude towards others was completely different from his attitude towards the Hua Corporation. Not long after, Hua Shidu downloaded a movie from his computer and gave a Bluetooth earpiece to Bei Yunj. Let her watch the movie in peace. Dean He and Si Chengyan also saw with their own eyes that their usually unruly Master Pei actually obediently put on his earphones and watched a movie by himself. Wasn't Master Pei being too obedient? What does Director He think about the DX technology project? Soon, Hua Shidu's staff started to ask questions. After Director He snapped back to reality, he immediately said, "The DX project is actually our Computing Institute's key project this year. As you all know, the patent rights to the first project were bought by the Delaney Group." Director He flipped through the data that he had long memorized. He raised his head and smiled. 5 years, 50 billion yuan. Of course, it's in our nation's currency. At this moment, everyone fell silent. Speaking of expensive, no one was more expensive than the patent fees. However, even if the price was high, there were still people who came forward one after another. Then what's your ideal fee this time? Morden probed. Director He smiled. "Sigh, we do scientific research. Actually, we don't know much about business matters." Chapter 643. Everyone was speechless. He was too humble. You scientific researchers have already sucked blood from capitalists. Do you know that? Actually, we're more sincere this time. Can we double the price? Dean He probed. Actually, there was a reason for Dean He's lack of confidence in this conversation. The last time he mentioned the Hua Corporation, a certain someone started to have no bottom line. He said that if the Hua Corporation felt that it was too expensive, they could reduce the price appropriately. At the thought of this, Dean He could not help but take a deep breath. Who would have thought that there would be a time when he was in love? At this moment, no one said anything. Not long after, Hua Shidu said, "These requests are not a problem. However, I hope that your company can consider buying out the DX technology for 10 years. Hearing this, Dean He was stunned for a moment. He and Si Chengyan looked at each other, and in the end, they could not help but look at Bei Yunj. Bei Yunj only woke up from the movie when she felt that someone had kicked her stool. She looked up expressionlessly at Si Chengyan. Si Chengyan suddenly felt a chill down his spine. This ancestor was really not easy to please. Ahem. Buying out the DX technology for 10 years? Dean He deliberately raised his voice, wanting Bei Yunj, who was wearing earphones, to hear him. At this moment, Bei Yunj took off her earphones and looked at Hua Shidu. She thought for a moment, rested her chin on her hand, and looked at Hua Shidu with a smile. "Brother, isn't 10 years a little expensive?" At this moment, everyone who did not know anything thought that this Missy did not know anything and started to feel sorry for her. Only Dean He wanted to cover Bei Yunj's mouth to make her rational. "No, this was not expensive." "Miss Pei, aren't you too considerate?" Dean He smiled insincerely. If this were anyone else, Bei Yunj might have disagreed coldly. Now that it was this person from the Hua Corporation, she started to feel sorry for him for spending too much money. Dean He, "Miss Pei is inexperienced." "Don't argue with a young lady," the vice president quickly said. He was afraid that Director He would be angered by Bei Yunj's words. Then the vice president looked at Bei Yunj with a fake smile and said, "Miss Pei, it's better for you to listen to the company's instructions. No matter how much we sell, it's only right." Dean He, Si Chengyan was speechless. His words were well said, but this was the first time that they had seen such a dangerous action where flattery could offend the person in question. Bei Yunj's casual gaze swept past the vice president. However, when she remembered that this was a company meeting, it was indeed inappropriate for her to speak. Thus, she put on her headphones and watched the movie. Who would have thought? At this time, the man next to her saw that the girl didn't say anything and thought that she was unhappy. The next moment, just as Bei Yunj reached out to adjust the volume of the movie, a warm and dry hand suddenly covered hers. Bei Yunj's long and curly eyelashes trembled violently. As soon as she looked up, she saw the arrogant and handsome man speaking calmly on the surface, but secretly holding her hand under the table. He comforted her very naturally. It was as if he was coaxing her. When Bei Yunj regained her senses, her face inexplicably heated up. After the meeting, Hua Shidu stayed behind to give instructions. Vice President's son can arrange to go to City G in the near future to expand the market there. Hearing Hua Shidu's words, Zhang Su knew very well. Letting Vice President's son do market expansion seemed to be giving Vice President's son a great opportunity, but it was actually an exile. P.S. If nothing goes wrong tomorrow, there will be 10 updates. You're tuning in to the Xiaofan's Wuxia Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.